Daniels will take it, design, keeper. Daniels still on his feet, he will score. A 3rd and 10 design quarterback keeper. Jalen Daniels puts the Jayhawks on the board and into the end zone.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
And Reese, no chance. It's a keeper. Look at the quarterback shaping. Fooled everyone. Touchdown, Baylor.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Penix tucks it under. Into the end zone. Touchdown, Polk. Magic from Michael Penix.
Sikkim 365 Radio is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Here's Gabriel. Steps up in the pocket, looking for the first down, has running room and more. Gabriel down the sideline. Burst of speed at the 20. Cuts it back. Dylan Gabriel, touchdown. OU. 61 yards.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Rodemaker keeps it, looking for Wilson, back corner. Touchdown, Florida State!
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go. Yet another week of evidence in college football. And, man, did we get some evidence. Some teams bounced back. Some teams fell down. Some moved up dramatically. And some gave themselves a chance to get back in it. And we'll get into all of that. Craig Smoak to my right, Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoak. Behind the scenes, Emery Winter, Jack McKenzie, and also Jacob Wilson today. This is 365 Sports and Sikkim 365 Radio. Who had the better weekend? Kansas, Oregon, Washington, or Penn State, or Appalachian State?
Well, Appalachian State got out by the hair of the chinny chin chin, so I would say their weekend was probably better last week. I don't know. Washington had a really good weekend, but I think Kansas is just flying high right now.
I'm going to answer this every week that you ask the same question. They all why one, right? They all had tremendous weeks, I think, for different reasons. So, I think that if you're Washington, clearly an awesome victory over Michigan State. App State, by the skin of your teeth after the emotions of last week. Kansas, to be 3-0 and to feel like you're not just winning games, but you're winning games convincingly. Those are all different reasons to be excited. And so I'm going to say, like I said last week, D all of the above to everybody who's winning games and doing so in a nice fashion that is something you can chalk up to more than just being some lucky play at the end of a game.
Kansas, of course, with the opening Big 12, where they are, and now we're going to hear from a former quarterback who did not have much success in wins and losses. Carter Stanley will join us today at 3:45. But you think about it, Big 12 now, Iowa State, Baylor, up in Ames. Baylor was tested and, of course, not able to get through it in what happened in Provo. Does that make and help them against that crowd in Ames, 11 o'clock Saturday? I don't know. But I still see a team that is they don't know who they are yet, or they don't know quite what to do yet. Dave Aranda discusses that. We'll have a little comment from him at 4:30. He even admitted that in the post-game press conference about the team was playing tight. There was almost this need to release some stress, but they did what they're supposed to do in the end. But the younger players and even others are trying to maybe just get through a few things. And one of the things he thought about might be the ghost of how good they were last year.
Can I just go ahead and assume that you're trying to poke at something maybe? Is that they're not a very great team right now?
Now, this weekend to me, no, I'm not saying they're not very good. It's
and if
too
you
early
are,
to
like,
no,
that's
I'm
fine.
Not. I would say that if I didn't think. But to me this weekend, because you lost in Provo, without being overly dramatic, to me this weekend, you win this weekend, you have a chance to be an 8-9 win team. To me, if you don't, then you're headed for one of those 7-5 teams that a lot of people, when Craig brought up it, they thought they were maybe 8-4 because of some of the questions. A lot of people are like, tell us who the 4 losses are going to be.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we might have 2 before we even get out of the month of September.
I did get that screamed at me a couple of times.
Yeah.
Like 8-4. Like who are they supposed to lose to? It's like, I don't know. Look at the road schedule. All those teams, basically. I mean, so one of them's already out of the way with BYU, and we saw what they turned around and did, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And now here's Iowa State right out of the gates. And you know what? That Texas game looks more difficult than when it was first announced. That Oklahoma game looks more difficult than when it was first announced. And, I think you can go across the board pretty much with that. And maybe not West Virginia, but by the time that rolls around, the fact that's a weekday game, that's going to be pretty tough to overcome. So, yeah, I mean, they've got a really tough slate in front of them, and I think you're right about this weekend. But I think, kind of like you're saying, and I know you said if you felt that way, you say it, but I'm feeling like, yeah, they're an 8-4 team probably at best right now the way that they're playing. Absolutely. They are not a 10-win team in their current state. There's a great defense, but there's a lot of questions on offense, and there's still some questions on defense to some extent, but there are many questions on offense. There are a few questions on special teams even. That was not exactly the cleanest phase of the game this past couple of weeks. So, yeah, they're a team that is sitting there with a giant fork in the road. And I mentioned a fork in the road last week after BYU. It's like, okay, what direction do you want to go? Do you want to pout and not overcome this and kind of just, drag your feet a little bit? Or are you going to bounce back ferociously and be like, that's not us. We learned from this and bam. And I think you saw both of those things against Texas State. The first half was the kind of dragged out and emotionally still overcome and the physical toll. And then the second half, you saw a team that's like, oh, we're playing Texas State. We should beat them, and we should beat them convincingly. And then they went on to do that. But what team shows up in Ames, Iowa, I have no idea. And I do think it's one of those, you going 8-4, or are you going more towards the 10-win side of things?
There are 2 things that concern me about this team, and I will say them repeatedly. One is, I don't know if they have guys. I mean, Travis called me presumptuous last week, but I watch guys, wide receivers, not win routes. Mm-hmm. They're not winning. They are not winning routes, so it's making it hard for Blake Shapen to complete those passes. They cannot take the top off of a defense right now. They have not had that problem in a long time. Even some of their bad teams could chuck one out there and have a guy run underneath it because
they had the one deep ball that was just a little bit off. But yeah it would have been really helpful to hit that pass.
But right now they're not doing that. And the other thing is, this is not a great team on the road. They weren't great on the road last year. They lost to Oklahoma State and TCU on the road last year. Those are those 2 losses. They've played one road game this year. They've lost that game. They're going to a place that even at 11 o'clock in the morning is going to be, they'll stay up all night.
Yep.
They'll eat eggs and drink beer. Yep. That's what they're going to do.
Or drink beer, then eat eggs.
They'll put it in a smoothie. I don't know, but it's going to be wild.
And there's some things that are going on with them that the Khalil Keith, who has not played, the offensive lineman, appears to be that's a lengthy injury. There is a possibility, according to Dave Aranda, that Monterey Baldwin, who can help them stretch the field, who did not play against Texas State, and tight end Ben Sims, they really missed him in that game. He might end up, we thought, could end up being their leading receiver. But Tay McWilliams, no. That doesn't look good as far as him coming back. So that's Baylor. Iowa State, we're going to hear from a former Iowa State defensive lineman on our show on Wednesday to discuss the Cyclones.
I mean, I do think there was good things to take away from it. I mean, the emergence of Richard Reese, and I'm sure we'll unpack a lot of it. That was obviously huge, and to be able to pair him with Squirrel Williams is great. And I'm sure, I think we saw some good things from Blake Shapen ultimately. I mean, he threw his first career interception, and it was a just way telegraphed interception. But beside that, I thought he played pretty well, although some of the numbers won't say that. Like his completion percentage, for example, was, I think, under right at 50%. So that's not great. But, overall, I thought that once they woke up a little bit in the second half, and really that big run that he had before halftime was kind of like the spark that I felt like they needed to be able to breathe a little bit. Once they did that, that was good. So there were some good things, like a Richard Reese that emerged from that game. But, I'm sure there's somebody out there that's like, well, hey, it's only, 3 games in, give them a break. They lost a lot from last year, and we're definitely going to do that. But we're also reacting to a lot of the expectations that there were before the year. If the expectations coming in were like, this is going to be a 7-6 team that lost a lot, and, hey, they'll make a bowl game, but it'll probably be like the Holiday Bowl or something like that, then, we'd be judging them probably off that. But that was not the expectations a lot of the time. The expectations did start to climb up more towards the Big 12 favorite as voted on this summer, and 10 wins as, you can see on certain Vegas lines throughout the offseason. I think there were plenty of reasons to see holes in them and plenty of reasons to be optimistic. And I think right now we're kind of in the middle of they could be that team that's capable of still winning the conference, and I think that they are that team in some ways, and they could be a team that's struggling right there towards the back middle of the conference. And I think they are that team in some ways. And so we're going to find out a lot beginning this Saturday in Ames, Iowa.
Who's going to cover Xavier Hutchinson? We'll get into that. Of course, they had some pockets in that secondary that appeared to be open. Yes, the defense is pretty good, but we'll get into the Baylor and Iowa State again throughout the week, along with the rest of the Big 12. All right, I mentioned who had the best weekend, and you guys can say all of the above if you want. Brigham Young, coming high off that win against Baylor, smoked by Oregon. Houston, beaten by Kansas. And yes, Kansas is a great story right now in college football. Michigan State, beaten up by Washington. And Miami goes into College Station. They have a pretty good football team and a very high intense game. A&M suspended some of their star freshmen before the game. Good for them. They need to do that. And then they had just enough with Max Johnson as their quarterback.
Was there more of a mockery of the top 25 rankings than A&M and Miami this weekend?
Yeah. I mean,
well done.
Miami, we knew that they didn't have, like we said the other day, this isn't Lamar Thomas and Corus Copeland, run and go routes on people, but A&M shut them down. I mean, really did shut them down. And they couldn't sniff the end zone. A&M played really well in the red zone. But A&M's offense is only slightly buoyed by Max Johnson, meaning they probably have more. I think that's probably more a schematic thing, too. I'm not to say that Max Johnson's going to make everything better, but yeah, I mean, it's everything we kind of said about them is true.
Tyler Van Dyke, it can be a good quarterback, but he can also make himself a not very good quarterback, and I think you saw him making himself not a very good quarterback, and the A&M defense certainly helped with that as well. But, not a very good day for him at all. Miami has a stunning lack of weaponry. They lose Restrepo, who's a solid number 2 wide receiver, and that's like a dagger for them. And they had like nothing offensively as far as weapons go. And then A&M is basically Devin Achane. And, I know there might be a sprinkle of Anaya Smith in there. But, yeah, I mean, Max Johnson was, slightly better maybe overall, like the end result?
He was, to me, more mature in how he handled the game.
He should be, yeah.
Took what he could get without trying to bite off more than he could chew.
But he didn't change that offense all that much for the better. I mean, it was still a 17-9 win when all was said and done. And, give whatever credit you want to give to the opponent and everything. But, yeah, Jimbo's got a big offensive problem right now. I mean, that they're eking out games
like what is it? And Smith and then Achane, right?
Yeah, that's what I just said. Yeah. And Achane had an okay day where he, receiving and rushing wise, he was able to make an impact. But yeah, outside of those guys, they are. I mean, both those teams. I mean, for A&M and Miami, the way that they've recruited and the brands and all of that, for them to have such a stunning lack of playmakers was really. I mean, I guess it wasn't shocking because we kind of knew that going in, but it was still surprising to see like how much they're really struggling in that area. But yeah, that was an interesting outcome.
I think a lot of the issues for A&M and the offense is also the offensive line with a lot of those players that they have brought in, and they don't seem to have much push. But Achane and Smith are really fun. I'll say this, and we don't have to touch too much on it, but the story came out that some freshmen were suspended for the game. They got out late. One of them was the one driving around in the parking garage. Evan Stewart was one of the names, of phenomenal, talented freshman receiver.
He suited up, I think, didn't he?
Yeah, but that's what they need. They need to get a hold of that quickly. Whether or not that would have happened had they won the game against Appalachian State, I don't know. But you got to get in that quickly, because if you don't, we know what's going to happen.
Yeah, just to let you know how bad Miami's struggling on the skill players. A&M, after targeting penalties, their whole starting secondary was out.
Yeah. And both of them were right in the side with the crown of the helmet. One of them was, I still think in the targeting penalties, the offensive player leaning a helmet down as well can make that interesting. But if you lead with your head, doesn't matter what the offensive player does. How about Kansas State? They blew a tire. We've been popping up on it. We've been, Oklahoma State rolled, Texas. They had, UTSA had them kind of in a little bit of it, and then they just kind of had too much. Bijan Robinson was fantastic. But how about Kansas State? And that's a team that we've been kind of scratching their back a little bit, and they just went down to Tulane on Saturday.
Yeah, that was that was something they did not need if they want to be taken for real. Losing to Tulane, you're not supposed to lose. And look, ask A&M how much the shine can come off of you once you lose to a non-Power 5 opponent. It can come off real fast. And Kansas State, for all the good things that they've been doing, they still go out and do this, which, I don't know what that means to the Big 12 Conference, but the way I see things shaking out right now, I've changed my thought about where they are, maybe drop them down a couple spots compared to everybody else. But also after BYU and Oregon and then Baylor and BYU last week and how Oregon got stomped by Georgia, here's what I know about college football right now. The Georgia Bulldogs and everybody else, because there seems to be parity everywhere up at the top.
Georgia, Ohio State, again, they beat the hell out of Toledo with 77, but they are still so loaded. But can they do it on both sides of the field? You have Alabama right there, and then we'll figure out Michigan and Clemson at some point too.
A lot of the Kansas State hope was based off of if Adrian Martinez could be a much better player than he was in Nebraska. And it almost feels as though he's trying to not make mistakes, and therefore is basically just scared to play full-on football. And their offense is, it's not very good at all. They're not going to just drop a couple spots. They should plummet, because I don't see any reason why you should sit there and really take them as seriously as you maybe were prior to this week in terms of on top of the Big 12 Conference. Not saying they can't win a bunch of games, not saying they can't still compete for the title, but they got some serious things to figure out on offense with Adrian Martinez if they want to do that.
Yep.
And they have a guy who's clearly got a lot of talent. And initially, early on, they winning their first couple games and feeling good about it, but a lot of that's going back to Deuce Vaughn and what an integral part of the offense that he is. But Tulane didn't even play a flawless game by any means, and you're sitting there. It's a 10-7 ball game at halftime. What an effort by the Green Wave. I mean, I think you got to give them a lot of credit for sitting in there and fighting and scratching and clawing and making some key plays and getting that score in the fourth quarter. But K-State's got some issues offensively that they need to figure out, and they've got the big OC hire that's the hometown favorite and everything like that, and the big transfer quarterback. But they're Deuce Vaughn or bust, basically, and that's just not going to cut it. And Adrian Martinez, pretty pedestrian stat line. It's 150 yards passing and a touchdown on the day, and able to run for about 60 yards, but that's just not going to cut it if Deuce Vaughn's not running for about 203 touchdowns, which he was not doing on Saturday.
All right, let me go over a couple more things, college football, rapid fire, and you guys can respond. This is from Harold R. Kuntz III. Jacob, I sent Garrett a ton of graphics. I don't know which ones you have available. This is about Kansas. You may not have it available. But he put this out there. Turner Gill, Charlie Weiss, Clint Bowen, David Beatty, and Les Miles combined for 2 road wins among all of them. Lance Leipold has 3 already.
In 2 seasons.
And you don't take that for granted,
3,
because, it was hard for them to win on the road. Of course, it was hard for them to even win at home. And put that one up there again, Jacob, if you don't mind. That's a great stat. Turner Gill, Charlie Weiss, Clint Bowen, David Beatty, Les Miles, all. And the quarterback, I think Daniels is a Les Miles recruit. And thank God for that, because he's phenomenal. Combined for 2 road wins among all of them. And Lance Leipold already now has 3. Great stat from Harold R. Kuntz III on Twitter.
Houston's got huge problems, clearly. This is not what was expected of them. They were talked about as one of the darling G5s, potentially, that could sneak their way into the playoff with a good year, and they're going to be lucky to make a bowl game based on the direction they're going. Now, granted, they had a really tough start to the season, so that's even with, some good teams still remaining, their schedule will ease up a little bit, but no, you see a player, you see receivers fighting on the sideline in the midst of that loss on Saturday. That was ugly. You'd never see that in college football. You never see that really anywhere, quite frankly, of a guy going to the sideline. You see guys maybe barking at each other, but it's full-blown shoving his teammate to the ground and scrapping it up, right there amidst the team in the middle of a game. That was a really bad scene for Holgorsen and Houston, and it just feels like they're a team that's falling apart, and it's, coming apart at the seams. And I don't know what's going on in that locker room or or what, needs to be taken care of, but I expected a lot more out of them than we've seen this year. And again, granted, they played a tough schedule to start, but when you saw that sideline part of things, that's when the opinion, that's not just, oh, well, you're playing a tough schedule or you're losing games. That's when you go, okay, there are much bigger issues going on in Houston than we realized if that's happening on the sidelines in front of full public view. So very interesting to see where that goes.
That was a bad story, bad situation. Now, Herm Edwards out at Arizona State. Michelle Gardner covers ASU. She'll join us much later in the show today at 5:20 to discuss it. And I don't know, Jacob, again, I sent Garrett like a lot of things over the weekend. Is the video of Herm Edwards coming off the field, and the president and the AD, Ray Anderson, were both there in the end zone as Herm Edwards was coming off the field after a really difficult loss to Eastern Michigan. And don't have it, that's fine. And he was gone, like before the end of the night.
Yeah, and NCAA investigation, and they're playing poorly. This was going to end eventually. I thought it might end a little bit later, but of course I didn't see them losing to Eastern Michigan. I didn't have that on my bingo card, so
would have made a lot of money.
Yeah.
Here's a note about Eastern Michigan from Steve Berkowitz, who's great about financial stuff when it comes to college sports. Since 2017, Eastern Michigan has 4 wins over Power 5 teams that has also earned them a combined nearly $4 million. Arizona State for $1.5 million, Illinois, Purdue, and Rutgers. How about that?
Purdue got off cheap. Good for you, Purdue.
Yeah, they did. But that's a chunk of money and a huge win that knocked Herm Edwards to the sideline. At least he may be on NFL game day or whatever you want to call it by the weekend.
No surprise whatsoever. I mean, I don't even really get all that surprised by the timing. I guess I am surprised just because the way certain buyouts are and whatnot, that it's just funny to me to get all the way to this point where we're 2-3 weeks into the season and now you fire guys because of buyouts or just feelings or whatever. It's like, what were the most obvious firings in this offseason? Scott Frost, Herm Edwards, it's going to be Brian Harsin, it's going to be Carl Durrell. Now, some of those might be, again, affected. Like a Carl Durrell, I think it's like a crazy buyout of like $11 million right now or something. Now, maybe Colorado pays that. Maybe they don't. But outside of the buyouts, like, yeah, these were all obvious. And do y'all realize who Ray Anderson is? Like, y'all know who that is, right?
He was Herm Edwards' agent.
Herm Edwards' agent.
Yeah.
So, he obviously had a big, piece in the decision of bringing Herm Edwards on. And now he's, part of the decision to, in some ways, let him go. But I'm curious about how far he's going to, be able to stick, or how much he's going to be able to stick around because, you fire the football coach, but ultimately, if things don't improve, where do you start to look? You start to look at the AD, especially when he made the misfire at football coach. I think that's a good job, barring that you can explain the NCAA implications away and kind of soothe, feelings over how much of an obstacle that might be. I don't think any of us expect the NCAA to just destroy programs anymore, but could it get a little sticky, icky as far as what you're having to deal with scholarship-wise or penalty-wise? Maybe that's a deterrent to some extent, and maybe the AD's a deterrent. I don't know, but they've got some things to figure out. But that will be a job that a number of people I'm sure will definitely be interested in, and I'm sure a ton will kick the tires on because of location and either way they're going to be in the pack unless crazy things happen. But even then, I think that's a school that's got a lot going for it, and they're a bit of a mess right now. But I think that there will still be some people that are, looking at that job long and hard. But yeah, I'm not surprised at all that Herm Edwards was out. That was a foregone conclusion in my mind.
UCF lost a couple weeks ago to Louisville. Houston beaten by Kansas. Brigham Young loses at Oregon. There's no disrespect losing to Oregon anytime, but that was one-sided and got at one point 38-7, whatever the score was.
The final score was not indicative of how much they got their tails kicked.
You wonder if the emotions that put into the game, and it's not because it was Baylor like they're playing Alabama, but that game meant a great deal to them after what happened here in Waco a year ago. And you just wonder if they got so high for that one that they, how can you overlook Oregon? Just because Georgia crushed them, well, they beat everybody. So Brigham Young, Houston, and UCF have gone down recently. Cincinnati, of course, an incoming Big 12 team, has bounced back after that loss to Arkansas to start the year.
Yeah, and they were in trouble at least early on Saturday, so it was good to see them rally and go ahead and take care of business when all was said and done. But there was a moment of scoreboard watching for Cincy earlier, like, oh, okay, oh, well, hope that works out. BYU, on the other hand, I think we saw a couple of different things. I think BYU is still a very good team, but I don't think they're quite playoff caliber. And I think that some of the things that Baylor wasn't able to expose, Oregon was able to expose. And I do think that, when you look at the atmosphere that was the Baylor game, there was carryover from the year before. They had basically taken that throughout the offseason, the disrespect that they felt and the way they were bullied by Baylor specifically. And that was like a year-long thing and build up into that game. That was that late-night crowd with a raucous scene and just a lot of emotions involved. And they absolutely, I have no doubts about it, they emptied their tank against Baylor. And then they turned around and they didn't have the home backing and they didn't have the built-in storyline. And then all of a sudden they had all this attention and a near top 10 ranking. And like, man, if they can get past Oregon, they might go to the playoff and like all this stuff. And meanwhile, they're physically spent after the week prior. And double overtime, like, let's not forget, like, that Baylor game, it wasn't like they just blew out Baylor and just took care. Like, that was double overtime, and Baylor didn't even play all that well. Oregon played a really good game. They got good Bo Nix, and they've got some weapons, and they were at home, and it was, middle of the day, and all the things that were in BYU's favor were not in their favor, and they were coming off of a tough win, and I think that all just added up, and Oregon's, not a bad team by any stretch. How good they are, I'm not all the way sure just yet, but Bo Nix is playing well. They're pretty dang good, and they were pretty dang good on Saturday.
Bo Nix seems to me over his career like he has some sort of stockpile of magic elixir, but it's limited, so he's been judicious about it because there are days where you watch him and, like, clearly he has not taken the magic elixir. You
can only take so much.
Yeah, you can take so much.
He
did on Saturday. He looked great, and that's the Bo Nix that I think Auburn thought they were going to have all the time. From one, he was a veteran, but
he could sure use it right now.
He's up and down.
Yeah,
he's kind of their version of what Spencer Sanders was last year. And Oklahoma State has just rolled yet again. They're cruising along. They have an off week this week. I believe it's this week. Yeah, I think it is. They have an off week, and then they have Baylor on October the 1st. So they get a chance to sit back, chill out a little bit after a 3-0 start to start the year. One other coaching fire. Nebraska's not done. Mickey Joseph in Nebraska was smoked immediately, basically, by Oklahoma. Eric Chinander, defensive coordinator, who probably should have been fired the same day they fired Scott Frost. He's out after an embarrassing performance at home against the Sooners.
That was weird timing, like you said, just a week after Frost goes. I think that there is whoever comes in next is going to have to just transfer portal the hell out of this roster, especially on defense, in my opinion. I don't know if you agree or disagree with that, but I don't think that they line up very well with the teams that they're supposed to be lining up very well against, especially on defense. And they were outclassed, in terms of what we saw on Saturday. That was the fear.
Outclassed in every way.
With Oklahoma coming in, though, especially offensively, and Jeff Lebby's offense, the Briles offense, evolving over these past few years, with Lebby's evolving as an assistant coach and offensive coordinator, and his stops at UCF and Ole Miss and so on. He's good at what he does, and he knows Dylan Gabriel, and Dylan Gabriel's good, and they got good skill guys, and Marvin Mims is really coming to his own once again and is thriving, and others are as well, and they've got a lot of confidence right now in Oklahoma, and they're playing good complementary football. The question with that offense has always been, like, can you play great defense and play that offense at its peak? And we've never seen really anybody like that true style of that version do that. You can play pretty solid defense, but consistently very good. It's really hard to do that because of how much you're out on the field, and things like that. But right now, Oklahoma is taking care of business, and they didn't fall into the lull of, like, win one for the Gipper or Nebraska, let's win one for Mickey Joseph. Like, there was none of that. They were like, we're smashing the gas, and you can try to keep up if you want, but you're probably not going to be able to, and Nebraska had no chance to keep up with them.
That's the last time we should talk about them, honestly, until they hire a new coach.
I don't think that Nebraska as a team had too much win one for the Gipper in them anyway.
No,
I think they were all ready to kind of move on.
I think it took more out of them than it inspired them.
Yeah. All
unfortunately.
Right. When we come back, there's some injury updates. One on the Texas Tech linebacker and a gruesome injury in the game that they played on the road in what was a really competitive game with NC State. We'll get to that. Also, the Fresno State quarterback, an injury update on him as well, and Notre Dame's quarterback situation. Not the starter, but the backup is hurt, and we'll get into all of that and more. We updated you on Tay McWilliams, Khalil Keith, appear as if they're not coming back anytime soon for Baylor. Running back and offensive lineman, a starter from last year, Keith, and that Monterey Baldwin, the receiver, and also Ben Simmons, the tight end, appear like they'll look and kind of see what they can do this week for the game against the Cyclones in Ames. That will be fervor pitch up in Ames against the Cyclones. This is Sick on 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street in Waco. They're available on DoorDash. So, look, if you can't make it there, if you're at the, at the house and just can't get out the door and need delivery, they can do that for you via DoorDash. You just go on DoorDash, look up Riverbend Liquor and Wine, make your order and have it there. Look, if you're curious about going in on Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street behind the bank and seeing the great products that they have, you should go in there. Customer service is second to none. They're always rolling through new products. Best selection of craft Texas whiskeys all around. Best selection of craft beers all around. It's fall. So those, the fall brews, the Oktoberfest, the pumpkins, those things are starting to come in as well. And they always have some great kind of promotion going on with a new brand, a different brand, something like that, whether it be seltzer or whiskey or beer or whatever it is. They've got great stuff going on. You can find out about that on Instagram. So pop on in to Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street behind the bank.
If you're out looking for a great selection of new cars and trucks, then shop Allen Samuels in Waco. Because we have some of the best deals in Central Texas that will put you in a new vehicle and driving away with confidence. Save big this month on a new 2022 Dodge Charger GT and get $500 bonus cash with 2.9% for 72 months. Plus, first responders get an extra $500 off your purchase. Stop by today or browse online at allensamuelsdcj.com.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics. The team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
It's summertime. There's picnics, reunions, cookouts, and so much to do. And Waco Custom Marketplace on Lake Air Drive in Waco is your home for the butcher shop that can help you with beef, pork, poultry, and seafood. They are spectacular at being able to deliver you whatever cut of steak you want. Bone-in ribeye, however thick you want it, that's great. They'll do it. Sirloin, T-bone, porterhouse, bacon-wrapped filet. And, of course, as I mentioned, they have pork, poultry, and seafood. Their Norwegian salmon is spectacular. Also, all of the sauces and seasonings you'll ever need, all the ingredients you'll ever need to make sure you have that perfect, flawless taste. So it's delicious whenever you take something off the grill. And a full-fledged bakery as well with fresh baked bread and kolaches every single day. Up and down the aisle of Waco Custom Marketplace, you also have what you need from knickknacks to snacks to more at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, Waco Custom Marketplace.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
The chat room is, well, it's as always, full throttle. I'm going to try to go in there and come out of it, if I can, safe and sound. But, man, we love you guys. We really do. All of you, men and women that are in the chat room.
Okay, so I do, Sir Bob Blah Blah said, and this is way back, he goes, I forgot Turner Gill coached at Kansas.
Turner Gill?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Which Turner Gill is very happy that you did.
Yeah. It's
No,
Texas Tech, go ahead.
I know we're going to get to Tech, but Kansas, that was incredible. You know, somebody asked Kansas Kansas question a couple weeks ago of, do you think they can go bowling? And I said, no, I'm not ready to go there just yet. Like, I think they can win, 3-4 games, but I'm not full in on, going bowling this year. I was wrong. And you know what? Unlike some people, I won't try to twist that I didn't say that or that I had it right all along or, no, I don't want to talk about it. Hey, I was wrong. Kansas, if they don't go bowling now, I'd be surprised. I mean,
now the upset is from this point forward, would you put money on the fact they're going to get the 6 wins? I would.
And you would,
yeah.
But then again, you really would, looking at, just the way they played just all around, especially just how dynamic they are at quarterback. I mean, there's a lot to love about them, but at the same time, you can sit there and go, well, I don't know if they're going to beat Iowa State just yet. And I don't know if they're going to beat Baylor just yet. And I don't know if they're going to beat Texas just yet. And I don't know if they're going to beat OU. So, where do those wins come in? That's going to be fun. But, yeah, it's almost like it would be a disappointment at this stage if they don't.
You can't say, okay.
They're not just winning ugly. They're winning because they can score, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's the reason.
If they beat Duke on Saturday, they're 4-0.
And that's a way better game than anyone in their right mind could have ever predicted because Duke is good as well. They're very surprised with Mike Elko in year number 1 coming over from A&M. And that's going to be a hell of a game. That's not basketball, and that's a surprise.
The winner goes to the Final Four.
Yeah, basically.
But so say they come out of Duke 4-0. That means they got to find 2. We don't know how good TCU is yet. I mean, there's a lot of questions.
Duke's not a gimme.
Yeah, Duke's not a gimme. But let's just
all
Kansas
the
State at the end of the year.
Winning.
So
yeah, Indiana, Kansas, Duke, North Carolina,
if
others.
They can beat this Duke game will be huge because if they can get to 4 wins and then they've only got to win 2 Big 12 games, I mean, you would pick them over K-State probably right now. Certainly after this weekend. Outside of that, though, West Virginia probably, but I don't know on the top of my head where all their games are and when and all that. But, yeah, they're going to have a chance.
One of the things that you can't do, though, and this is what Lance Leipold has to – and he looks like he's one of those that's a grinder – is they don't need to look about anything other than Duke. But it's fun. I think it's a great story.
Neither does he.
I did not think they would be 3-0. But I did say when we were discussing them, I just felt like they were going to be much improved. Now, I didn't say they're going to win 7-8 games, but I just had a weird feeling about him. Bryce Ramirez, a gruesome injury. You don't want to look at it. They showed it, and that was enough. It was very similar to all the other lower leg injuries. Fractured lower left leg. He had to stay overnight in Raleigh, North Carolina after the Tech loss to NC State. It was gruesome. Good luck to him. Wishing him the best in his recovery.
Yeah, that was bone coming out. That was really gross. And we see that very rarely given the sport that we watch and how many games there are every Saturday and throughout the week. You'd think that that would be more commonplace. Thankfully, it's not, and that was really nasty. And I just feel awful for that young man. That was a horrific injury, and I'm sure that will be a lot to overcome, but yeah, that was all bad, and that was just a gut punch.
It was a fluke because he was coming up on a tackle, and then all of a sudden a teammate dove over a runner and just hit him right there below the knee, and you could see that the McNamara is going to miss some time. The Michigan quarterback, what?
I want to go back to Texas Tech. I mean, that was a nice showing versus NC State for the most part. I think obviously Donovan Smith can be very up and down for you, but I think for going on the road,
pick six,
he's gonna win games and lose games for you. That's just who he is. That's why I wonder like how cemented he is. If they have their full array of like how much do the turnovers get overshadowed by the other great plays he can make. How much they matter in comparison. Or is that going to be problematic for them? And it was problematic again on Saturday. He's been able to overcome it, though, at other times. But, yeah, Tech, I think, had a good showing in terms of going on the road and fighting hard and not just getting blown out of the water and embarrassed. I think that they, learned some good lessons.
There was a time when I thought they were going to do what Houston did to them, when they kind of had NC State control the game, and then all of a sudden there was that sliver that Tech had some momentum. Michigan lost Cade McNamara for what Coach Harbaugh said is a few weeks. Obviously, J.J. McCarthy had taken over the job after a couple of games. McNamara is going to be out after a leg injury. Fresno State quarterback Jake Haener carted off the field. The coach did say after the game, the team does not fear season-ending injury, so that's pretty good news for Haener.
Oh, that's tremendous news for him. He's a really good quarterback, and that would have been a shame to see him lost this early in the season to an injury. So I'm glad to hear that he'll be back after getting carted off. That's never good when you see the cart come out. So good news for Jeff Tedford and company. And as far as Michigan. They had like 7 different quarterbacks took at least a snap on Saturday, and he's kind of been funny with the whole quarterback thing to begin with. They're a buzzsaw, man. Like they're a pretty good team, and they're right there in that playoff talk. That's for dadgum sure. Them and Ohio State's going to be a lot of fun, but yeah, Michigan's. Definitely a fun team, and I'm curious to see kind of how the quarterback situation continues to evolve over the course of the season. But that obviously answers at least part of the equation for right now.
You can see why he thinks it's biblical. I mean, where he's just throwing it all out there.
Yeah, they're good. You have what Georgia's doing. It's still, Alabama, we'll see them get tested, and they were against Texas. They won how they should, and then you have that next Ohio State with their explosive offense. And then whatever we know, and what we'll learn, Michigan, of course, with how they play, Clemson, and who else is next? Is it Oklahoma, who battered Nebraska? Is it Oklahoma State? We will learn that.
Is it USC?
USC that is explosive
Washington?
With what they've done, and that's why they play the games. And there's some bangers, and we'll get to the bangers a little bit later on today on the show. One more quote before we take a break and come back with Carter Stanley, the former Kansas quarterback. Sam Cobb, I'm not sure if you guys saw this or not. Greg Sankey was at the game, the A&M game against Miami, and he said, does he know, he was asked, do you know when Oklahoma, Texas are coming to get next year's schedule done? Sankey cited Missouri's 2011 announcement as the limit. We don't want to go through that. The real issue is the changing of non-conference games. The sooner we know, the better for everyone. Now, he also said on the Oklahoma-Georgia series being canceled, Alabama-Texas is still scheduled for next year, is a pretty good sign that conference alignments are going to stay that way next year. So any ideas that, well, there's still the chance they might leave after this season, that's from Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, at the A&M and Miami game.
I think it'll be fun if we do, in fact, get at least a year of the new Big 12 and have the new 4 schools plus the regular, 10 that they've got right now. See a little Texas versus BYU or however they reconfigure the schedule. That's going to be really key to see is that schedule for next year, because beyond that, I don't have a whole lot of hope that they're going to be, well, I guess – let's say through 24 until
23. He said for next year.
That would be next year's 23, but he didn't say anything about 24.
There's 2 more years after this one
right.
on
so
the TV deal.
I think we can all feel pretty good that they're going to be around next year. But beyond that, it's totally who the heck knows, and probably leaning more towards unlikely that they'll probably head out.
When we come back, he's a former quarterback at Kansas. No, they didn't win much when he was there. He's now involved in wealth management, and Carter Stanley will join us, former Kansas quarterback on the Jayhawks, who he's obviously very proud of. Mike Bean among some other KU fans. Are you ready? He's next on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler, Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 just east of 84 in Waco. What do they have? A bunch of great deals right now. Alan Samuels, in fact, they have available during their Ram Power Days Shop year after year the award-winning Ram 2022 1500 pickup truck designed to be durable, functional, and stylish. A truck that gets you what you need, even great feel. Legendary feel and luxurious leather trim, seating options, exceptional legroom, storage, plus surround view camera options that you'd expect from a premium truck. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Again, Ted Teague is the owner, general manager, and of course a great staff that can help you with what you need. When it comes to the Jeep brand, the Ram. Remember that back-to-back Motor Trend Truck of the Year, and what they have when it comes to a service department. If you want somebody to help you find the car you're looking for, they have a great staff of client managers. The one I used, AJ, is there. He's as good as anybody you could imagine in the car business. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco.
Looking for a great job with great pay and awesome benefits? Genco FCU is hiring. As a longtime Waco employer, Genco focuses on what matters most in our employees' lives, like pay incentives, bonuses, benefits, 401k plans, paid time off, advancement opportunities, medical, prescription, dental, and vision insurance, as well as short and long-term disability. Come join our incredible team today and make Genco your career that will work for you. Apply at gencofcu.org or at any branch location.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
We're fighting hard at Pickup Outfitters in our battle to end truck nudity. But it's not just about putting an outfit on a naked truck, it's about making sure you have the very best customer service. So we offer the Pickup Outfitters Lifetime Installation Guarantee. Over time, sometimes your outfit needs a little tune-up, maybe some tightening, adjusting, whatever. If you outfitted your truck at Pickup Outfitters, that tune-up is absolutely no charge for the remainder of the time you own that truck. We also offer free warranty assistance. If for any reason you need to use your warranty, you just bring it back to us and we take care of it. It just makes sense. I mean, operating without a promise like that would be like offering customer service in the nude. And if you've seen our staff, trust me, you don't want that. So do your part to end truck nudity by outfitting your truck, Jeep, SUV, or van at Pickup Outfitters, 220 Lake Air Drive in Waco, where we promise to serve you fully clothed. Check out our website, createacommotion.com.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Are you a Sikkim 365 superfan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at SicEm365.com.
So I reached out to Matt Tate, covers KU, both men's basketball and football, and I said, hey, I'd like to get somebody on, a former Kansas player, if you don't mind. He recommended Carter Stanley, who joined us, a former Jayhawks quarterback and now a part of investment advisor at UBS. He joins us on SicEm 365 Radio and 365 Sports. How proud are you of what you have seen with your alma mater?
David, yeah, thanks for having me. No, it's been awesome to watch. Really encouraging. It's been great because there was a decent amount of hype. This is, coming with a grain of salt, but decent amount of hype coming into the season just based off of, the transfers that they got and, how they were able to finish the 2021 season. But, it's been so awesome to see how they've come out and executed and, winning 2 games on the road despite being down 14-0. It's been a great product.
Carter, from someone who, went through the time that you did at Kansas where you guys did not win much and didn't see a lot of support from the student body and, all the basketball school talk that goes on there. What is it like to be inside that, knowing that you're trying to break through that ceiling, that you're trying to be good?
Right. Yeah, no, it can definitely be tough. And there was times throughout my time there where, whether it was just one home game or maybe a stretch of a month where we really felt the fan base come behind us because we were playing well or something like that. But no, it's really going off for them right now between, people on campus showing up and, Twitter, social media is definitely excited. So no, it means a lot now that they're definitely supporting them.
Carter, what's it feel like with Lance Leipold at the helm? What have you noticed as a former player in terms of how he's kind of rallied the troops, but also been able to build what has been a very successful start to this season? Just what has he been able to do that so many others weren't able to do?
Really tough to say, just, not being in the facility day to day, but you just tell all those players are bought in. It's not like they're going out there every Saturday and they're just bigger, stronger, faster than the opponents. They're just playing hard. They're coachable, and no, it's been really encouraging to see.
What are your thoughts about Daniels, the quarterback?
I mean, he's been lighting it up. It's been awesome to watch. You could tell that last year, towards the end of the year, he was really feeling comfortable and playing some efficient ball, but maybe a play or two that would cost them, not necessarily cost them, but kind of hurt their chances to essentially win the game. And no, he's been absolutely lighting it up, and it's been awesome to see.
What about this offense has clicked for them, do you think, from last year to this year?
Yeah, I think mainly just repetition. If you think about it, Coach Leipold, he came in, he didn't even get a spring ball with those guys last year. So they were just kind of thrown to the fire, having only fall camp for a month and then going into the season. But I think it's been huge for them, just, having a whole off season together and, a lot of guys return for the most part. And no, it's been great to watch.
So, Carter, I'm not sure if you realize this, but Jalen Daniels won the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week honors. Did you realize he's the first Jayhawk to win Offensive Player of the Week since you won Offensive Player of the Week back in 2019?
Wow.
Yeah, no, I did see that. That's incredible. And, it's been awesome and certainly well-deserved. I think we were able to get 2 Defensive Player of the Weeks as well. And, no, it's been really fun to watch, and it's awesome how much those guys are buying in.
So what do you remember about your Offensive Player of the Week honors beating Texas Tech? A pretty big performance, throwing for over 400 and scoring 4 total touchdowns.
Definitely a fun one. It was good. It was our second week under the offense coordinator at the time, Brent Bierman. And it was tough because the week before we had a really good showing. We were playing at Texas. Really good game. We unfortunately lost on a last-second field goal. But, no, it's definitely a good feeling. And, I know Jalen knows this, but you're only as good as your next. And, the way he's playing, I got a lot of confidence in him.
You played in the KU. We've seen this rising up to beat Texas a couple of times, as you know. And also, that was a game in which you threw for over 200 yards against the Horns. What do you remember about that one?
Yeah, that game was wild, man. That was just the true definition of a team win. As far as offense, defense, special teams, defense was lights out in that game in 2016. I think we forced like 5 turnovers. Offense, for the most part, we struggled, but did enough in the fourth quarter, I think, on the last 2 drives to come out with a win.
We're talking to former Kansas quarterback Carter Stanley, Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Jayhawks are off to a 3-0 start with a win, of course, against West Virginia on the road to start their Big 12 play, and also the win at Houston this past weekend.
What do you think the mood is like on campus for Kansas versus Duke, undefeated on the football field this week?
Yeah, I can promise you it's a little different than what people were thinking of, before the season started. I'm sure people could have imagined that both teams would have had a loss or 2 by now, and obviously it would have been the old basketball narrative, and it certainly still is. That's not discrediting either program's basketball team, but no, it's got a lot of hype around it. I don't know if you saw, but Jayhawks were definitely trying to get College Game Day to come in.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't happen, unfortunately, but definitely wasn't a lack of effort on the Jayhawks part. So no, it'll be exciting to watch, and Duke definitely has a good thing going right now. So I'm fired up to watch that one.
Could you imagine if this was in November and it was Kansas Duke, and then they had a nightcap of basketball?
Man, yeah, I mean that'd be something else, because there's I think it's coming up here soon, but late night in the fog is always a big event for our basketball team, and I think it usually happens on a Friday night before one of the football games. So yeah, I mean, hopefully we could keep it rolling, and again, not sure what weekend that falls on, but be a great weekend to be in Lawrence.
Have you met personally Lance Leipold?
Haven't yet personally, but no, he's reached out, which was really cool. I've talked to some other former players as well, and it's awesome that he's reached out to guys that he didn't even coach, and just means a lot from the alumni, and seems like a great guy. And I'll shoot him a text from time to time after the games, just saying congrats and whatnot.
He seems to be and again, they're 3-0, and obviously they've taken care of business, but he does seem to be the perfect fit for what they needed. I don't know what that is yet, because it's early in the year and it's only his second year. But what do you see as some other maybe intangible reasons that they might be winning?
Yeah, no, I think it's spot on. So far it definitely does seem like a perfect fit. And, he's not a guy that's a flashy guy, and he came in there and it was going to be all business. And you look at his resume, he's definitely built some programs in the past and been successful other places. So no, it's been really good. And not only him, but just the fact that he carries his assistant coaches with him, it seems like, from the previous locations he's been at. That's a big thing as far as culture, and just those coaches being on the same page, and they're used to the just daily operations of what they do.
It's a fun time, huh? To be KU after the win in the national championship. Of course, basketball, we know. Do you have like text threads with former players that go on as they're doing and having this kind of success?
Oh yeah, it's great. I'm in a group chat. It's actually a fantasy football group with some of the former guys I played with, and there's been a lot of all capital letters in that in that chat. Fired up watching them play, and yeah, we're all pumped for them.
All right, Carter, you working for UBS, is that right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, just working for UBS, and apologize if my voice sounds a little gone. I actually just finished up my last exam that I got to take and passed it, so definitely feeling good about it.
Good for you.
Congratulations.
Man. Yeah, congratulations. What's more important, that or taking an oncoming blitz?
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and say the blitz. Yeah, you got different things in mind. It's, at the end of the day, it's there's a lot of serious aspects about the work, but it's not the same pain as getting hit by a Baylor defender, or Texas or Oklahoma defender.
So you took the test. Do you already know whether you passed it, or is that something you'll get soon?
Yeah, it's pretty nerve wracking. So you're in there, and I think it was 2.5 hours, and you click submit, and you pretty much just see a cursor spin on the screen for about 10 seconds. And then if you pass, it just says pass. If you fail, it shows you like your percentage and what you need to work on. But yeah, sure enough, submitted it, said a quick prayer, and saw the 4 letters, and I was pumped.
That's awesome, man. That's got to be so nerve-wracking. Congratulations on getting through it. That's awesome. Start that next chapter in what you're doing post-football. Thanks for your time, Carter. Appreciate you jumping on, giving us a perspective of being at Kansas and what you see right now with them.
Yeah, David, I really appreciate you having me on, and thanks for talking up the Hawks.
You too. You absolutely. They've earned it. Carter Stanley, former KU quarterback, and he also got that investment broker or advisor test done as well. Good for him. And he was a part of that 16 team. That's the one that got Charlie Strong fired when they beat Texas. And I'll tell you right, that's always been the joke about Kansas. And then they had the incredible win last year that still was phenomenal how that ended if you're a KU fan. But I like what they're doing. They're not winning ugly. They're winning. And when I looked up, it was 28-14 Kansas.
Well, after that.
And they just kept their foot on the pedal.
It's somewhat ugly because they're having to come from behind.
Yeah.
But and they got a high-flying offense. I mean, they can score. They can score. And Jalen Daniels is a great player. And they've got, others as well, skill spots. But, he's been an absolute energizer for them. And, a threat with his arm, but a threat on the ground as well. And we know how problematic that can be and how dangerous that is for a team in college football in particular. He's been, an it factor for them. But, I mean, at the same time, there's still a lot of improvement to be done. I mean, like we just got done saying a few minutes ago, okay, it's great. They're 3-0. Are you guaranteeing a bowl game right now based on the fact that it's all Big 12 play pretty much from here on out?
No.
So, let's see how they do. But, yeah, definitely celebrate what they've done to this point and be excited about it and be certainly truly optimistic that they're going to, be better as the, time goes on with Lance Leipold. I mean, they're just going to continue to get better and better and better. But, yeah, this early part's good, but as we know, it's a long season. So we'll see how it goes for them ultimately. But, yeah, Duke this weekend, that's going to be a very interesting game.
Yeah, that will be. It's an 11 o'clock kick on FS1. I'm taking KU now that there'll be a bowl team, and here's why. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm not trying to overreact to what – they just beat West Virginia and Houston on the road. I mean, they just put up over 100 points against 2 teams that are in the Power 5. Well, Houston, I know, not yet. But I'll take that. Baylor's never won at West Virginia, no matter who they were or what West Virginia was. So I will take them, and they've averaged over 50 points a game. Good for the Jayhawks. Mike Bean and company on the chat room. He's a huge KU fan. All right, we're not done. Much more to get to, including Dave Softy Mahler. Get ready, buckle up. He'll talk about the University of Washington and their great win against Michigan State next on Sick on 365 Radio. Ideal MRI in the Central Texas Marketplace in the southern part of Waco, just off of I-35 and on the access road for Highway 6. Ideal MRI, I told you the text I got the other day from Carl Campbell, used to serve our country, and we appreciate him for that. His wife was looking to get an MRI. And like the other stories that we've told you, they just couldn't find the right option. They couldn't find what was affordable, and they were kind of stuck. He had heard us discuss and promote and endorse Ideal MRI. I have been inside their MRI machines 4 different times. So he came up here, got an appointment, came up, and she had her MRI. And it was $497 or less. And they got the evidence. And they found out what was going on. And it helped get her through the pain. Because Ideal MRI will get you that evidence. They'll get that information to your doctor. They'll get that in the portal for your doctor to be able to watch immediately. In fact, they can check up and call you and say, hey, this is what we've seen. They've done that for me as well. IdealMRI.com.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. And BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneerboys.com.
Did you know that Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness is a partner of the City of Waco? Did you know that we are open to the public? Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers day passes to the public for only $10 a day, and we offer money-saving memberships. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including bar, yoga, boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. There are free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, elliptical machines, and much more on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training available where you can be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, and kids club. 17 tennis courts, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Waco's premier experience where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit our website at wacotennis.com. Call us at 254-753-7675 or visit us next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Penix fires. Touchdown, Polk.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
We'll have Dave Softy Mahler covers Washington for KJR, also the Seattle Seahawks, and much more of everything Seattle. The Big 12 Players of the Week, Craig mentioned Jalen Daniels, the quarterback on offense. Jahdae Barron, who had a pick 6 against UTSA that really blew that thing open.
Former Baylor commit.
Trace Ford of Oklahoma State.
Actually, former signee, I believe.
Really?
I think they released him like a month after some weird thing, if I remember that correctly.
Trace Ford of Oklahoma State, special teams. And then also Richard Reese from Belleville High School. Very, very strong start to his freshman year. And he's got that ability to make people miss. And when they do, he's hard to get. He had a long touchdown, had 3 touchdowns in the win against Texas State. So he was the newcomer of the week in the Big 12. So we'll hear from Dave Softy Mahler from KJR Radio in Seattle a little bit later on today. We'll have Travis Roeder in about an hour to look at some of the keys of what he saw now that he has all the film work as they go forward to play this week at Iowa State in Ames. We're now joined by a great friend of the show, Dave Softy Mahler, KJR. Dave, appreciate your time. How impressed are you so far with what you've seen and the win against Michigan State for UW?
Hey, first of all, good to hear you guys, number one. Number two, you must use that term great friend of the show loosely, man, because the bar is very low on this program for you guys. When it comes to pals, I think anybody who picks up the damn phone and calls it back is a great friend of the show. But, yeah. No, I'm fired up, man. I mean, look, I'm drinking the Kalen Kool-Aid right now after what I saw on Saturday, and you know, maybe it's just the homer in me. I don't know. Maybe it's the desperate fan in me that just wants so badly for UW and Washington to be back to the glory days of, 2000 with Rick Neuheisel and 1991 with Don James and the mid-'70s and late '60s with Jim Owens and guys like that. But, look, man, they pretty much manhandled that football team on Saturday night. I don't know how much of the game you guys were able to watch, but they're leading by 25 points in the fourth quarter. It's 39-14 with 9 minutes to go in the game. So the score doesn't even really show how dominant Washington was in that game. Michigan State's running backs did absolutely nothing on the ground in that game. This is a football team that was getting after the quarterback big time in the first 2 games of the year. Jacoby Windman, the transfer linebacker or edge rusher from UNLV, was a total non-factor in that game for the Spartans on Saturday. So I was mostly impressed by what the Huskies did at the line of scrimmage, both offensively and defensively. And as you guys know, man, that's what it takes to win. Watching that Georgia-Alabama game last year in the national championship and watching how dominant those lines were, it was scary thinking about how, my team would look against guys like that. But I just think that when you can get after the quarterback and protect the way that UW has been protecting Michael Penix Jr. in the first couple of games of the year, I got people now talking about UW winning 10 games coming off a 4-8 season a year ago. So, yeah, I'd say people are buying the hype up here, man, for sure.
When we had you on after Jimmy Lake was let go, and you had told us stories about he was a man who, for lack of a better term I have right now, held on real tight to everything and was very micromanaging and that cannot really your coaches, your attitude reflects on the players kind of reflect that. Is this just kind of relief being with someone as a head coach who is the opposite?
Well, it's a relief being with somebody who's not a child. It is a grown-up. And that's what I'm seeing out of Kalen DeBoer. And look, I mean, I'll be honest with you, man. When they gave Jimmy Lake the job, I thought it was the right move. I think Chris Peterson thought it was the right move, and I think most of Husky Nation thought it was the right move. You got to remember that back in the day, Jimmy Lake was one of the most sought-after defensive coordinators in the country, right? There's a reason why Pete Kwiatkowski, who's now Stark's coordinator at Alabama or at Texas, there's a reason why he gave up his gig as defensive coordinator to let Jimmy Lake take the job, because he knew if he did not, that he would have taken off and gone somewhere else. There were a lot of schools that were looking at Jimmy Lake as their DC, including Alabama and including Texas A&M. So he was hot, and as my buddy Petros Papadakis likes to say, it was the right move to hire Jimmy Lake, and it was the right move to fire Jimmy Lake. But they never should have gone 4-8 last year, just like they never should have gone 0-12 with Tyrone Willingham in 2008. There's too much talent on this football team, and you're seeing it right now. Look, they brought in a couple of different pieces, namely their quarterback and the transfer portal. But that team never should have gone 4-8 a year ago, and I think you're seeing why now.
Well, you mentioned the quarterback a couple of times. Michael Penix mania, I'm sure, is going on right now in Seattle. Softy, your thoughts on just his play, the different style that he brings to the Huskies, and the success they've had with him at the helm so far?
Well, he gives them just a lot of options at quarterback that they just haven't had. I mean, they can stretch the field now. There was no semblance of a vertical passing game last year, and no semblance of it in 2020 during the COVID-shortened season when they played 4 games. So the fact that they can now pump the ball down the field is great. Its accuracy is top-notch. And, people talk about arm strength, guys, and they think about, fly patterns, go routes, post patterns, things like that. But what about throwing the ball across the field and getting it to a point before a cornerback can get there? What about finding a tight window in the end zone and getting it there before a safety can knock it down? That's what Michael Penix is all about. And I would implore people, if you want to find out more about what Michael Penix brings to the table from an arm strength perspective, go watch the touchdown to Wayne Talapapa, the transfer running back from Virginia, in the corner of the end zone, front corner of the end zone, right side. He threads that thing and puts it only where Wayne could get it. And that's the difference between this guy and other quarterbacks that UW has had in the last 10 years or so. I mean, not even Jake Locker, who was the 8th pick in the draft by the Titans, was as accurate as Michael Penix is. So if he can stay healthy, he's going to be fine. I mean, the problem with Michael Penix has not been his skill. The problem with Michael Penix has been keeping him healthy and keeping him available. He has not been able to finish a year yet in college. Let's cross our fingers and hope this is the first time.
You know, I was looking at Kalen DeBoer's resume and where he has been, and what he did at Sioux Falls, of course, was an unbelievable stretch when he was in the NAIA and then Fresno State. Now, was there ever any connection at all? Did his teams, like at Fresno, when he was an assistant, ever play or head coach play Washington? Was his name just like the guy? Was this an automatic? What was this like?
Well, I think what happened is Jimmy Lake got fired and Jen Cohen went out and started doing what she always does, and that's talking to people that she trusts. And, you know, that has at times served her well, and other times it hasn't been able to deliver. I mean, Mike Hopkins was the longtime assistant coach under Jim Boeheim at Syracuse, and a lot of people that, you know, she spoke to said that Mike Hopkins was the right guy for the job at Washington, and so far that hasn't worked out on the basketball court. But a lot of people that she trusts, namely Chris Peterson, Dave, came to Kalen DeBoer and supported him and vouched for him. I don't know how many press conferences I've been at, and I think I may have told you guys this before. If I did, I'm sorry. I don't know how many press conferences I've been at where a guy gets introduced as the head coach and the previous head coach is there to support him, or, you know, other head coaches that have been at Washington were there. Chris Peterson was at Kalen DeBoer's press conference. So he really vouched for him. And I think once Jen Cohen got that word from Chris Peterson, it made it really easy to hire him. He's got a great foundation. You know, he's not about flash. He's all about football. He's all about kids. And everywhere the guy has gone, he's won. I mean, look, it may not translate at this level the way it did at South Dakota or the way it did at Fresno, but he's been around a winning culture for the last 10 to 15 years.
Was there any Big Ten, Pac-12 flair in this game, you know, expansion stuff?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know if there's any trash talk between players or, you know, I mean, look, I mean, we talked about this on our pregame show on Saturday, that this was almost kind of a tryout in some ways for Washington. How could they handle, you know, one of the best teams that the Big Ten has to offer? Washington State did the same thing last weekend when they went to Madison and knocked off Wisconsin. So you're seeing a couple of teams in the Pac-12 get an opportunity to show what they can do and how they would maybe perform if they were in that conference. And I would think if the Big Ten is going to expand, the next step for them would be Washington and Oregon, right? I mean, right now you got one team on the East Coast and Rutgers. You got two teams on the West Coast and UCLA and UW. So I think to cut down on travel for teams like UCLA and USC, you're going to have to add maybe a little more representation from the West Coast. The closest trip right now for USC and UCLA is Lincoln, Nebraska. And that's like 1,500 miles away, if not even more than that. It might be 2,000. You can look it up on your little internet thing there. But it's a long trip, right? It's a long trip for the kids, and it's a long trip for fans. You have to go out and make trips like that. You want to follow USC, you want to follow UCLA, and you're flying 2,000 miles minimum for every single game you go to. Normally a trip like that, as you guys know, is just simply a non-conference game. And you do it once a year, or maybe once every couple years or 3 years. If you're a Husky fan, you'll make a trip to Ann Arbor or Columbus or, you know, Baton Rouge, you know, for the LSU game or whatever. So I think in the end, the Big Ten is going to want to expand even more. Kevin Warren, the commissioner of the Big Ten, has pretty much made that clear, that he wants a bigger footprint and he wants that footprint to be the entire country. Well, they're on their way to doing that.
Looking at this schedule, Softy, I mean, there's a case, and I know they got to take care of their business, but if they do, there's a case that can be made that they can run through these next few weeks, and then it's that last month of the season, at least on paper, with Oregon State and Oregon and Washington State, that looks like it could be a little bit dicier. Colorado's just awful right now. I'm not worried about that one, but just what do you kind of make of the makeup of the Pac-12? You got Lincoln Riley at USC now. You got Wazoo playing well, so on. Washington, obviously. What do you think of the league?
Well, here's the cool thing about the Pac-12 schedule the Huskies play. They don't play USC and they don't play Utah until at least the Pac-12 championship game. So that's a gift, man. That's a gift from the gods to not have to get those teams. And, you know, Stanford's given UW trouble for a long, long time. UCLA at the Rose Bowl is always a difficult thing to get up for because there's nobody there, right? It's like going to Stanford, man. It's like there's a reason why they call Stanford the library. It's very hard to get motivated once you're out there because it's so damn quiet. The Rose Bowl the same freaking way. I think college football players feed off energy. They feed off the crowd, even when it's a crowd rooting against you. And for the Huskies to have to go to UCLA and then play Stanford, it's hard to play in stadiums like that. But the Stanford game is here. They should take care of business against Stanford unless there's a big emotional letdown after what happened on Saturday. And we saw that with the Seahawks, by the way, guys. They played Russell Wilson on Monday night, had this incredible emotional game, and then delivered a third against the Niners yesterday. So I think that's a real thing that coaches have to guard against. But for Washington in this conference, yeah, I mean, I think you can argue the two biggest things they've done are beat Wisconsin and beat Michigan State, and those are both done by the two schools in the state of Washington. So I don't know, man. I think the perception of the Pac-12 is still pretty bad. You guys could speak to that from your chair in Texas more than I could, but I think if you drive across the country, outside the West Coast, you go Midwest, South, East Coast, and you ask people for their perception of Pac-12 football, I think it's still pretty bad.
Yeah, it is. And obviously they're going through trying to figure out what they're going to do in the future with all of what's happened with USC and UCLA. Has that kind of fallen off? Paul asked about maybe something there because of the expansion or possibility. Has all that discussion or worry about where people end up, is that not even on the radar now, or is it?
Well, I mean, it's still a conversation, but not as much as it was when the story first broke, when Wilner put it out there a few weeks ago, because there were no games going on, right? Now we have games going on. Now we can talk about Michigan State and Stanford coming up on Saturday and all the big games we saw over the weekend. So when there's nothing else to distract you, right, and your attention, you tend to kind of gravitate towards one topic. And when that story came out, it was a gigantic deal. I think a lot of Husky fans were freaked out. A lot of Cougar fans were freaked out, and Beaver fans that maybe they'd get left behind. Does the Big Ten really have an interest in bringing on a market like Pullman, Washington, or Corvallis, Oregon, which are very, very small towns? So it's obvious that Kevin Warren is into the media market size. He went and got L.A., he went and got New York, and maybe he's going to end up getting Seattle when it's all said and done. But, yeah, the conversation about the Big Ten versus Pac-12 is certainly still being chatted about, but not nearly as much as it was a month ago.
Dave Softy Mahler, KJR Seattle, with us on 365 Sports. Jalen Polk, the wide receiver, he's from here. He's from Lufkin, Texas, in East Texas, where we were a long, long time. What a game for him, huh?
He was awesome. And you guys know, I think about his story. He actually broke his collarbone in the first drive of the Montana game a year ago and missed almost the entire year, came back towards the end of the season, but was never really the same. And he's a part of this wide receiver core that, I'll tell you what, man, Ryan Grubb, who's the offensive coordinator for UW, he's going to have a little bit of a problem getting all these guys the football. He's got Jalen Polk, who is the Pac-12 Freshman of the Week. That was just announced today. He's got Roma Dunze. He's got Jalen McMillan. He's got Dallas Jackson, the transfer from Michigan. He's got Taj Davis, who's the big 6'3", 6'4" wide receiver on this football team. And now he's got to find a way to get all of them the football. And they're having the same problem with their running backs. I mean, they got, look, you got Wayne Talapapa, who's the transfer from Virginia. You got Cam Davis, who was already here. You got Richard Newton, who was already here. You got Javion Sunday, who's from your neck of the woods as well, who I love as a player, but can't find the field.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all these guys that they just cannot find a way to get on the field. So Jalen Polk has been tremendous, and I'm so happy for him, dude. Dave, coming off the injury from a year ago, for him to have the kind of game that he got and getting behind the defense the way he did. I think a lot of people across the country were kicking themselves for not offering Jalen Polk after that game on Saturday.
Softy, before we let you go, your thoughts on the Seahawks. Got that big win, the revenge against Russ, so to speak, and then turn around in the loss to the 49ers. Your thoughts on the Seahawks right now?
Well, I think that they're limited at quarterback. I mean, there's a reason why Geno Smith has been a backup quarterback his entire career, and if you think that Pete Carroll can turn chicken crap into chicken salad or water into wine, then go for it. But I think that Geno Smith is what he is. I think 8-9 years of NFL football and data show you what Geno Smith is all about. And, look, and Pete Carroll is, not prone to let his quarterbacks take chances. Part of the reason why Russell Wilson's playing for Denver now and not Seattle. So I think he's a placeholder. I think Drew Lock is a placeholder. And the next great quarterback of the Seahawks right now might be in diapers, for God's sake. So this is anything that happens in 2022 for me is just gravy. They win, great. They lose, great. Root for the Broncos to stink and get a great draft pick from them and the Russell Wilson trade. And if the Hawks join him in the top 10, then awesome. But it's funny, and it's fun, as a matter of fact, in some ways, almost watching the Seahawks and not really being on edge about every single game because, again, anything that happens for the Hawks this year, in my mind, is a bonus.
Hey, if you bump into Will Nixon, that's another one. We covered his high school games. Love the young man.
Yep.
Transfer from Nebraska.
Well, that's a guy, Dave. Dave, that's a guy. That's another guy that couldn't even find the field on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And people love Will Nixon. He can catch, he can run, he can do it all. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife running back. But really, they just went with Talapapa and Cam Davis, and Will Nixon didn't even see the field in that game versus Michigan State. I got Cam Cleveland, who does the radio for UW. He's a former NFL player, played at UW, and he says Will Nixon is his favorite back of all the guys that we have on the team right now, and he couldn't even find the damn field on Saturday. So think about all the transfers, man, that Washington's got right now. They got Will Nixon from Nebraska. They got Talapapa from Virginia, Michael Penix from Indiana. They got a starting linebacker named Cam Bright, who came over from Pittsburgh. They got a starting corner, Jordan Perryman, who transferred in from UC Davis. Giles Jackson's from Michigan. Jeremiah Martin, number 3, came to us from Texas A&M down in your neck of the woods, and he looks like he might be stepping it up a little bit. The amount of players that Kalen DeBoer has on this football team right now that came from the transfer portal are unbelievable. And I shudder to think where this team would be without the transfer portal. They'd have Sam Heward at quarterback, who's a 5-star guy, but he's not really ready yet. And then Dylan Morris, who, God bless him, does the best he can, but just doesn't have the physical tools. So the transfer portal, as Sammy Sosa said, has been very, 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 very good to UW.
And so was your segment, as we knew it would be. Softy, great to have you back on the show. Good luck this week.
All right, see you guys. Bye.
Thank you. Will Nixon, I was looking, he had the touchdown run, I think, in the game they played prior to Michigan State. And he is a Swiss Army knife. I wonder if there was ever any conversation with Will Nixon and Baylor when he decided to transfer.
I don't know, because his dad was already gone from here.
He doesn't have any. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I mean, it would make sense because he's been here, but he really doesn't have any ties. I mean, he came here for a couple years in high school because his dad was an assistant coach at Baylor as the OC and running backs coach. And then the exact time that Will was getting recruited, I mean, his dad was still around, but there was all the talk about Rule leaving, which now welcome Matt Rule back to college football here in the next few weeks. I mean, that's inevitable at this point. Jeff Nixon was on his way out around the same or was here, but was ultimately going to be on his way out very soon after Will was making his decision. And Will, I think, made his decision, and then they were gone like a few months later or something. So I think I've got the timing on that right. Because you wondered, like, how did you lose your son as a recruit? You know, like, how could that possibly happen? Well, it's because they were headed to Carolina in the very near future. So, I don't know that Will feels like Waco's his hometown
I talked to Will a lot his senior year, and his mom, after I did the player profile, texted me about a couple things, or like she would text me to get the link. And I remember talking to her they invited me to like a senior night thing that year. And I ran into her, and I said, you know, he's so well adjusted for being a kid. He's like, well, he's lived in 100 places.
Sure. It's like an army brat.
And so for Will, being somewhere where his feet happen to stand is not that big of a deal for him. So I don't think he ever really thought about Baylor in that sense. Now, if he thought his dad was going to, like if his dad was the head coach at Baylor and was going to stay there for 5-6 years, maybe it's different. But when you're a coordinator's kid, it's even more dicey. So
yeah. When I talked to him when he committed to Nebraska, he was super pumped up about it. Like, and it didn't seem like Baylor was really much in his mind at all. You know, it was just all Nebraska, and he was in love with Scott Frost and the Cornhuskers. But you know, obviously he bolted before this season even got underway. I don't know if he saw the writing on the wall or writing on the wall for playing time or whatever the case was, but I think he's obviously enjoying himself right now, even if he is having a hard time getting onto the field. He's a team player, so I'm sure he's just having fun with the success that the group is having, but he'll be ready when his number's called, and he was a lot of fun to cover here. He was a great Midway Panther for a couple of years, and really enjoyed him.
He was as good with that jet sweep as almost anyone I've seen.
And he was a good young man too. Like I really thought highly of Will Will, and I do think highly of Will. So, yeah, excited that he's got the opportunity to, hopefully eventually see the field a lot more at Washington. But right now, glad that he's in a place that's, experienced a lot of success.
When we come back, we'll hear a couple of comments. One in particular from Dave Aranda. He brought up in the postgame on Saturday after the win against Texas State how he could almost feel this bubbling or simmering or almost a pipe burst with the emotions of his team and wanting to be better and players that were playing a little uptight and assistant coaches that were on edge. That comment from Dave Aranda 2 days later followed up on that next on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, used to be, and need to be. 1 out of every 3 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. Sleep habits, it may not be the same. You've gained some body fat even though you're active and your diet's pretty good. And then the other part of it, your focus and attention and energy is not good. And yes, the sex drive is missing and or just not there or not what it used to be. It could be ED, it could be something, but it all leads to testosterone levels being too low. 1 out of every 3 men, maybe that's you. And so go to pettycliniclot.com and contact them, an email and phone number, top left-hand corner of the website. Tell them I sent you, and Dr. Petty will set you up, get the blood work. He'll take care of that, get the results, contact you if the testosterone levels are too low, and give you the option to increase your testosterone levels so you can be and become the high-performance man you need to be and once were, and want to be back again at pettycliniclot.com.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
The wait is over. Richard Carr GMC has the trucks. 2022 GMC Sierras have hit the lot and they're waiting for you. Sierra trucks offer best-in-class towing, strong steel beds, multi-pro tailgates, and advanced features that make driving a Sierra second to none. Trucks are waiting for you to test drive now. So call now, log in now, or get here now and drive your next truck today at Richard Carr.
Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Reese over 100 yards with a chance for an exclamation point. Touchdown, Baylor!
This segment on Baylor Athletics on Sikkim 365 Radio is brought to you by Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac. Learn more at richardcarr.com.
All right, Baylor on Saturday in Ames, Iowa, and I don't know if this is almost, before it's all said and done, will become like a pick'em game, maybe a point or two one way or the other. I know that there's some chatter on the chat room about that.
Well, what are the odds? Do you know?
Someone was mentioning that they were surprised that Iowa State at home was the underdog to Baylor. It was, just a minute ago, for fun. The number 4 and fun.
God, I just pulled up and it was last week. They had him as 20-point favorites. I was like, that can't be right. I'm trying to find the latest line on at least one Vegas site, but
while you're looking that up,
okay, they're 2.5-point favorites.
Yeah,
and that's home field.
Me.
So that's not really much of an advantage at all.
So who's favored?
Iowa State's favored at home by 2.5.
2.5, which usually a home field, and I'm not a gambler, bettor, or anything like that. That's 3 points right off the top. So that's about what I would have thought. If Baylor would have been favored, I would be surprised. I just would be, because of yet to see, even though they had that knockdown, drag-out game with Brigham Young the week before.
Basically what they're saying is a 2.5 at home, it's an even game. It's just a pick-em game like you said.
So home field advantage is 3, and then anything after that. So, again, earlier today, Dave Aranda, Jack McKenzie was there. Dave Aranda mentioned that Tay McWilliams, running back, who was going to be their starter, and also Cole Maxwell, who got hurt in the BYU game, are out a bit longer. Khalil Keith, big part of their offensive line last year, was not played, a ways out. Hopeful on Ben Sims, the tight end. They need him back. And also Monterey Baldwin, who helped stretch the field. They need both of them, are maybe. Depending on what happens, of course, throughout the week.
Who the heck knows? They could be totally greenlit right now, and he's not going to say otherwise.
Probably
there'd be no point in doing that ahead of this game on Saturday. But, I think it's notable that he's said that Khalil Keith and who else is Tay McWilliams. Like Tay McWilliams, that's interesting because he took a big pop, and it was, apparently looked like concussion-related or head injury-related. So kind of, interesting that he might miss another game because usually that's like a one game and you're usually kind of back. So, it's definitely something to monitor there. But, if they can get Ben Sims back and Monterey Baldwin back, I think they'll be fine. That was the good part about Saturday was they were able to get, 10 different receivers caught the ball. The entire tight end room basically caught a ball. They were able to go deep into their ranks to really spread the love, basically. And it wasn't always pretty and it wasn't always crisp, but I think by the end of the day, their offense felt a lot better about where things stood and who, Shapen could rely on and really what they probably need to do with him and his legs a bit more to open things up. And there were just certain things that I think there were positive takeaways from Saturday, even if it wasn't always the prettiest sight.
They tried to do that with Brigham Young, would not allow the bootleg to have Shapen have the run-pass option. He had to make decisions very quickly or didn't have time to really make many decisions. I was going to say this about Kyle DeBoer, and then we'll go back to Aranda and Baylor. I have to put, he was 67-3 as a coach at NAIA.
Yeah, he's
won 3 now. He was like Pete Fredenberg there, except Fredenberg was at Mary Hardin Baylor for a long, long time.
Yeah, he's been shooting up the charts for a while.
Really impressed with that. All right, so in the game on Saturday, Baylor takes care of business against Texas State. Aranda was asked a question, and he kind of went into this philosophical, what he does, and that he felt like when they got into halftime, that he felt like the assistant coaches were like very uptight. And he even heard, and he said this in the interview, a post-game press conference, some F-bombs. And he kind of like, man, what's going on here? And they were winning 21-7, but it wasn't free and easy.
No, it was 14-7, and then right before halftime. No, it was 14-7 with about 2 minutes to go until halftime, and then Blake Shapen breaks off a big run, and it was 21-7. But before that run,
it was.
There was there needed to be a lot of stress because you were beating Texas freaking State. All due respect, 14-7 at home at halftime.
It looked like the 2020 offense. It really, really did. It was sluggish and it didn't get much going. So, having said that, I followed up with Dave Aranda today at his weekly press conference and asked him about, was it healthy of what they were able to get done and get through and kind of let that release at halftime? And here is Dave Aranda.
Dave, you mentioned the pressure point Saturday at halftime. You could almost feel something was on edge. As someone with your background and what you study, was that cleansing, that people kind of released the tension, the pressure, the expectations, and cleared it?
I appreciate that. I think we're still in the process of doing that. Yeah, so we're speaking about halftime. I could really sense in halftime just I think the coaches were like this, and because of that, the team was like this. And so I forget exactly what I said, but it was something like, just drop it, man. And so you instead of being like this, you'd love to be just like that. And I just think you can play green if that's the case. And I think all of that is, there has to be an emphasis on growing and improving, and that has to be over, proving to others that you're worthy, or proving to others that you're worth it. And I think we might be tilted too much in this area. And it needs to be more of an intrinsic thing. And I think, and that's just way difficult. I think there's I showed it to the staff. There's a scene in The Matrix, one of my favorite movies. And so there's a scene where Morpheus and Neo, they're on the street and they're in the Matrix and they're walking, and it's so the Matrix is program, and they're walking this way, just those two, and everyone on the street is walking the other way. And they're bumping into guys trying to walk on through, and it's like a whole thing. And so that's what it is. It's that. So that's hard, to be intrinsically and to be focused on who you become as a result of all of it, right? And to be process oriented when the outcomes are just so out there, is to walk against the grain with all of it. But that's the fight. We talk about the task within the task. That's clearly it. And so we can't lose that. In the face of these games, and that we'd love to win, but could very well lose and don't control the outcome with all of it. I think we keep the focus on these things, we'll continue to get better throughout the end of the year.
All right, that's him and The Matrix, and that's a movie that I've only seen scenes, but his reference and analogy to that scene of one of the scenes in The Matrix with Keanu Reeves and company, it was pretty neat when you think about it. It's like when you see cars going in different directions because a light may be broken, a traffic light, and no one, can you go or not? And then you're kind of stuck right there. And that's what they look like. And then Shapen had the bootleg, scored. Heck, I almost missed it, and I'm watching it from the top. And then there was a little bit more free and easy. The turnovers, though, and you mentioned that in your Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Craig, in the premium site. You turn it over, you lose the turnover battle in Ames on Saturday, I don't see how you win the game. And they've coughed it up a couple of different times. In the fumbles by, Reese and maybe Squirrel in that game.
No, it was Squirrel and it was Fleeks.
Josh Fleeks,
Richard Reese didn't fumble.
Richard Reese, Paul, he's got that ability to make people miss and somehow just find a sliver in between a bunch of human beings.
You know what he is? What the other running backs aren't right now, even Squirrel a little bit, is that he is the wide zone back who can make the one cut and just go. And he's in the open, he just runs. He's already decided he's going to sprint, and that's great. So, yeah, you have more and more of him. He's somewhere between I think Tay McWilliams and Squirrel, and I don't know, like you said earlier, don't know when we're going to see Tay McWilliams again. I do think in spite of Squirrel's kind of rough day with that kickoff return to the fumble, they still need to figure out the way to get him the ball more. But Richard Reese was certainly a highlight of the game, and they're going to need multiple players. Look, they did it last year. It wasn't just Abram Smith. It was also Treston Ebner. They did it with, guys who could change pace. They need multiple backs to do it, and they need depth, obviously, since their starting running back, Tammy Williams, is out. So, yeah, he was a breath of fresh air on Saturday, and they're going to need him to do that in Ames again.
It's basically if they didn't have that happen, then there'd be a whole lot of OS going on right now because they have only really Squirrel Williams, and he can't go, deep every single week. Look how many carries he had compared to last week. Last week he had his career number of carries. He's got the injury history, so people are going to constantly be worried about that. He had, 8 carries in this game this week after having 15-something, whatever it was last week. That was a career high, so they cut his carries in half. They could do that because Richard Reese could tote the rock and get them yardage, and they kept cracking him on that defense. They kept putting him out there, and eventually they knew he was going to break through that dam. He was going to just chip away at it, and he did. And he bust through with a big 50-plus yard run, and then later on had another big, long 20-plus yard run, and that's what they were looking for. I mean, they were building up his confidence. Just keep toting the rock, and eventually you're going to break through, and eventually he did. And they need that to happen because, the plan was coming in as, Tay McWilliams, our starting running back. We've seen absolutely nothing of him, basically. So he's a non-factor right now. And until he comes back, he's going to remain a non-factor. So it's on Squirrel and whoever else wants to ring the, whoever else wants to answer the bell. And Richard Reese from Belleville, no pun intended, did do that on Saturday. And they desperately needed it because they had nothing outside of Squirrel other than a little bit of Quaylon Jones. But even he still is a little bit of a work in progress. But now you've got Squirrel and you've got Reese and you got some explosiveness there. And then you add a little bit of Quaylon and his physicality, and there's something that's starting to take shape a little bit. You'd love to have Tay in the mix as well, but for right now, it's better off than it was prior to Texas State, that's for sure.
A note, by the way, Sam Kahn from Texas Tech head coach Joey McGuire on Tyler Shuck, the quarterback, says that back October 8th, either against Oklahoma State or possibly October 22nd against West Virginia. Donovan Smith, as Craig mentioned, Paul, we've seen him. He can win a game for you, and he also he's gonna give it away. The pick six against Houston was deadly, but they survived. And then the pick six against NC State it hurt badly as they were still in that game. They played well. That's a good football team. They've now played Houston. I mentioned Kansas with wins against West Virginia and Houston on the road. Texas Tech has now played back-to-back weeks against Houston at home to win in overtime, and then also with what they did at NC State.
Donovan Smith, 21 of 36 for 214, a touchdown and 2 interceptions. He had a 22.9 QBR, which I know that's not the end-all, be-all.
Lower than last week.
That's not the end-all, be-all, of course, but that's not very good. And just, let's see, what did he at least have? He had a rushing touchdown, but -9 yards. I know sack totals, coincide with that. But, I'm very curious to see what they look like when Tyler Shuck comes back and how, they kind of view his return whenever that is, and if that's important in the long run. And, do they feel like he could make them even better, or is Donovan Smith going to have firmly established himself as the guy? And, we're going to have to wait, obviously, like you just said, a little while to figure that out. But there's some things to like about Donovan Smith, and there's clearly some things to not like about Donovan Smith. And he's still a young player who's, it's kind of like Blake Shapen. Like, everybody wants him to be a finished product already. And it's like, damn, this kid's played 5 games, basically. He started 5 games now. Or has he even started 5? Yeah, he started 5 now at this point. Donovan Smith's pretty much in the same boat with even less experience, quite frankly, because he didn't go on a Big 12 title run, at the end of the year. But, he'll continue to progress. I'm just curious to what level and to what degree. And by the time Tyler Shuck comes back, is it, okay, let's see what Tyler Shuck can do now for us, or if it's kind of the Donovan Smith show at that point. But we did see a little Baron Morton as well. He did throw a pick, so that's not great, but 4 of 7 for 85 yards. So, I don't think that's settled by any means, is the point, and we'll see, especially when Shuck gets back.
Yeah, and again, the road games, when you're playing somebody pretty good, I love them. There's not a lot of them, but we saw what happened to Michigan State at Washington. We saw what happened to Texas Tech at NC State. We saw what almost happened to Alabama when they played in Austin, not this past weekend, but 2 weekends ago.
We've seen Baylor. What are all their losses?
Absolutely.
They're all on the road.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to win on the road.
2-21 on the road against ranked teams since 2010.
And for Texas Tech, I mean, they've got Texas at home. So this will obviously be a huge game for them, and I'm sure that'll be a crazy crowd. And that's going to be a afternoon game. It'd be a lot better if it was at night, like a 7 o'clock kickoff, because Lubbock at night's just a little wilder. But I mean, still, that'll be a raucous crowd, I'm sure. The Longhorns are playing well, and I think that'll be a nice measuring stick for Joey and the Red Raiders. So I'm sure they'll be amped up for that one.
The record for Baylor, 2-21, I think it is, non-conference games. Isn't it on the road?
Mm-hmm. It's not great.
Teams, or I'm not sure if it was conference. It would not be non-conference because they didn't play that many non-conference games against good
conference. Better not have that record in non-con. You'd be awful.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so that's a few things. That's Dave Aranda on Baylor as they're fighting themselves a little bit as they get ready for the opening game for them, the Big 12 at home against Iowa State. Travis Roeder will join us at the top of the hour. Got a busy 5 o'clock hour. Michelle Gardner on Arizona State firing Herm Edwards. And then David Hellman on the Cowboys. Very impressive win at home with Cooper Rush. He does it again. He's 2-0. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace. Baylor's not home this weekend, but boy, the tailgates were lit up. And how about our segment, if you haven't seen it, the pregame show for Baylor football that we have on our station, 365 Sports, and also on KWTX. What Blake Blackmar does, it is just amazing. And he gets product from Waco Custom Marketplace. Brisket or tri-tip, whatever it might be, sausage or chicken wings, they have it. They have a full-fledged butcher shop. Beef, pork, poultry, and also seafood. They have a bakery with bread, obviously, every day. They bake it. It's fresh, and kolaches every single day. And then up and down the aisles, I think there's 2 aisles, both sides on each aisle, from anything from snacks to seasonings to sauces to marinades to even, again, what you want with some pasta or a can of Rotel if you're making some queso dip if you do that. It's Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store and tailgate headquarters at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
At Allen Samuels in Waco, during Ram Power Days, shop the year-after-year award-winning new 2022 Ram 1500, designed to be durable, functional, and stylish. This is a truck that's legendary. Get the first-class feel and luxurious leather trim seating options, exceptional legroom and storage, plus surround view camera options you'd expect from a premium truck. Allen Samuels in Waco is the place to shop for Ram trucks. Visit today or browse online at allensamuelsdcj.com.
Come by. Let's be friends.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of health care while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of health care has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less.
sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance, and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Donnell Johnson, best quarterbacks right now in the Big 12, Spencer Sanders and Dylan Gabriel. What about Daniels at Kansas?
Yeah, Daniels is definitely one of the best quarterbacks at the moment. But yeah, the two Oklahoma schools have the two best besides Daniel, or including Daniels. Besides Daniels. Altogether, though, those are the three probably. I don't know that JT Daniels has been pretty good, but he's certainly not having the success that those guys are having right now. I'm curious to see kind of how the Mountaineers, maneuver through the rest of this schedule, and Neil Brown's future and all of that stuff, but they took out a lot of frustration this past week. And then, I think, Quinn Ewers apparently practiced. I don't know what that means, or he was at practice to some extent. So who knows how much the climb will be for him to get back into action, but he's definitely one of the best when he's going to be out there. And just in talent-wise, he is. So, I think that's fair, but you definitely need to include Jalen Daniels.
Chapin had 184 yards passing, 1 touchdown. Had the deep ball that was just off, and that's part of throwing a deep ball. 3-1 pick, and then also had 42 yards on the ground, including the long touchdown. That was a kick in the butt they needed.
Yeah,
do we expect his numbers to, did we think all of a sudden they were going to be just throwing around for 275, 300 a game?
I don't know about those numbers, but definitely more than they have been. But then again, that goes back to the wide receivers, and I guess my biggest question is, and I wish you would ask Dave Aranda this next week if there's a way to frame it correctly, because it's not like an insult or anything, but why did they not go to the portal and grab a wide receiver? Was there just nobody that they liked? I mean, Texas has, a lot of talent, and they're like, yeah, give us Isaiah Nayor, absolutely. Now, maybe Baylor went after Isaiah Nayor. Maybe they went after this guy or that guy and just weren't able to land him, but I would be really curious to know what their thought process was, because I sure had a lot of people, and I know they were basically megaphones for the coaches in so many ways. Like some of the stuff you hear that's definitely said for a certain reason or what have you. Oh, no, they love the young receivers on campus. They love the young receivers. That's great, but my gosh, wouldn't you love to have some veteran wide receivers right now on this team? I know that they would seemingly be better off, in my opinion, if they had a guy or two.
As long as they don't have baggage.
Obviously.
Would you like to have had Nayor even though he's hurt? Yes, of course you would. And among some of the other names that were out there, a kid from LSU that plays at Nebraska that, of course, you don't get to do much there. Pretty talented young man, too. All right, we're going to break, come back with Travis Roeder. Real quickly, AP poll, most everybody at the top stayed the same. Brigham Young dropped 7 spots behind Baylor the week after they had beaten Baylor in the poll because they were drilled by Washington. This is the AP poll. Texas about where they are, 22. A&M, 23. Penn State dropped. Penn State moved up 8. Oregon moved up 10 spots. Miami dropped 12.
Why is A&M ranked? I mean, I guess because they just beat a ranked team who
Well,
know they were
this year,
overranked.
they could be ranked this week. Last week, again, if you can fall, if it's, like, well, we can't knock them down 17-8. No, if they don't deserve to be in the top, and we're just any program. But, yeah, beating Miami would get them back in. It's just a matter of, I guess, some voters, well, we can't drop. A lot of times it's timing of who else around you does much because they did drop. They dropped a ton out of where they were the week before, and deservedly so.
I mean, maybe they are one of the top 25 teams in the country. I don't know. I feel like they're not very deserving of that right now, and neither is Miami. But maybe there's not 25 other teams that are there. But yeah, that just was one thing that popped out to me is like they're still ranked, huh? That's interesting, and they got a ranked win, but I think that was a little bit misleading.
Michigan State, Miami, and Brigham Young were the ones that fell the most. Brigham Young went up, remember, a bunch the week before, fell 9 back. This is in the coaches poll. And as I mentioned, they fell 7 in the writers of the Associated Press media.
I wasn't surprised that Miami A&M was an ugly game. I wasn't surprised that BYU went out and got beat. I was surprised by how badly they got beat.
Yeah, they got drilled.
But
they got beat up.
I was surprised by just how Michigan State looked against Washington, even if it was on the road and whatnot. They had no chance in that game.
When we come back, we'll hear from Travis Roeder on Baylor, his thoughts about whatever he saw and what he thought maybe is getting better or not. How do they stop the great receiver that Iowa State has in Hutchinson? Also, a little bit later on, Michelle Gardner on Arizona State looking for a new head coach. Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, got a lot of great deals right now going on over at Richard Carr. They are the people that you can count on for a great deal on your vehicle and for the service of over the life of your vehicle as well. And right now they want you to come by the dealership and take advantage of all the great opportunities that they have on the lot with the various cars and trucks that are arriving each week. It's been kind of a hassle, the whole wait part of getting a new car or truck, the supply chain issues, microchip, whatever, lack of availability, all the stuff that was going on with car dealerships. It's been hard to find a vehicle in some cases, and especially a new vehicle. But the wait is over in many cases over at Richard Carr as 2022 GM Sierras have hit the lot and are waiting for you to test drive today. They offer best-in-class towing, a strong steel bed, multi-pro tailgate, advanced collision avoidance, and a luxurious interior that includes massive touchscreens, 14 camera views, and premium comfort. So trucks are waiting for you to test drive now. Get to the dealership and drive your next truck today. And if the exact truck or SUV is not on the lot because of some of the issues that I mentioned, or there's just another delay of some sort, get on their inbound vehicle list and you can cut in line for trucks that are in production but not quite in stock just yet. Or you can let them help you design the exact truck or SUV you want, and they will have GMC prioritize it for you. So check out the various offers, whether new or pre-owned vehicles that are on the lot or will be on the lot soon over at Richard Carr. And if you want to drive your current car longer, they have award-winning service and collision repair. See their service specialists and set an appointment online for quick and reliable service from the dealer you can count on. For over 23 years in Central Texas, the dealership's built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs, and they are run by proud Wakelands, proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
1, 2.
I'm in love with a man named Rudy. I'm okay with that. He knows exactly what I want. He keeps me coming back. He cooks breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me. Does the dishes too. I'm in love with a man named Rudy. Last name Barbecue. It sure is easy to fall in love with Rudy's tasty oak smoked barbecue.
Next in line.
Looking for a great job with great pay and awesome benefits? Genco FCU is hiring. As a longtime Waco employer, Genco focuses on what matters most in our employees' lives, like pay incentives, bonuses, benefits, 401k plans, paid time off, advancement opportunities, medical, prescription, dental, and vision insurance, as well as short and long-term disability. Come join our incredible team today and make Genco your career that will work for you. Apply at gencofcu.org or at any branch location.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
It's summertime. There's picnics, reunions, cookouts, and so much to do. And Waco Custom Marketplace on Lake Air Drive in Waco is your home for the butcher shop that can help you with beef, pork, poultry, and seafood. They are spectacular at being able to deliver you whatever cut of steak you want. Bone-in ribeye, however thick you want it, that's great. They'll do it. Sirloin, T-bone, porterhouse, bacon wrap filet. And of course, as I mentioned, they have pork, poultry, and seafood. Their Norwegian salmon is spectacular. Also, all of the sauces and seasonings you'll ever need, all the ingredients you'll ever need to make sure you have that perfect, flawless taste. So it's delicious whenever you take something off the grill. And a full-fledged bakery as well, with fresh baked bread and kolaches every single day. Up and down the aisle of Waco Custom Marketplace, you also have what you need, from knickknacks to snacks to more, at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, Waco Custom Marketplace.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Williams. Craig Williams. All kinds of speed. Did he stay in bounds? He did. Touchdown, Baylor.
It's time for our weekly segment with Travis Roeder. With Travis Roeder of Sikkim365.com.
3rd down and 11. Inside the 5. Touchdown! Gavin Holmes, you're a genius.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Tom Albers, staying in touch with you and your money through these difficult and changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, 5 o'clock hour, lots to get to, including Travis Roeder, Sikkim365.com football analyst, and he writes in the premium section leading up to, past, at the end of the game, and then follow-ups once he watches everything. Travis, was there a point in the first half that what you saw offensively was like you were very disappointed in it? And I'm not saying it was 2020, but did you start to wonder if it was somewhat similar?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for having me on real quick. And I wanted to say, if y'all are ever in a day where you don't necessarily have the energy in the studio, maybe you ought to listen to that announcer, that clip that y'all just played, he's calling the Baylor Texas State game. It's like a 40-point game, and he was going nuts for those touchdowns.
Yeah.
That was pretty crazy. But yeah, as to the offense, no, I mean, obviously not even close to 2020. And really more specifically to your question, no. I never really, obviously Baylor had a couple of drives stall out. But it was very clear to me watching this game that if Baylor wanted to win this game by 70, they could have. What I saw in this game was that they identified a couple of weak areas from the BYU game, and they said, look, we have got to get better at these before we enter conference play. And notably, that was like, just cleaning things up front in the run game that's not just the offensive line, but offensive line plus tight ends. And then really for the running backs, I think the running backs left a lot of yards on the field against BYU. And so I think that's why you saw them kind of hammer Richard Reese hard. Like, we're going to get these young guys ready to play because we've got to have all these backs that we have at a level that they need to be for conference play. And so to me, it was really, Baylor had some struggles, but I think we saw at the end of the first half when they went that 2-minute drill and they kind of marched easily down the field, 96-yard drive in a couple minutes. That was them like really trying. And I don't mean trying as if they weren't trying otherwise. That was like the full playbook kind of available to them there. I think what they were really just trying to do is iron out some weak areas as opposed to trying to beat Texas State by 70 points.
Travis, you are a little bit rosier on their skill position guys than I am, and I'm coming around on the running backs. The wide receivers, though, Travis, cannot win routes. They can't. They're not doing it. What has to happen?
Okay. Paul, this is funny. We'll have to make this a weekly segment between you and I where we argue about the wide receivers. But, I just think, again, they're young, and I don't know necessarily if it's, I wouldn't agree with your statement that they can't win on routes. What I think really what it takes for young guys is they have all the physical ability in the world. Maybe they're doing well in practice. And especially for young guys who never really got pressed in high school and they were always more physically dominant than the people they were facing in high school or, in practice. All of a sudden they get a physical corner who maybe he's not as athletic as them, but he knows how to play on the line of scrimmage. And all of a sudden, usually Blake Shapen's expecting the wide receiver to be at a certain area, 2 beats after the snap, but the wide receiver struggling to beat press coverage or something like that. So I think that's all correctable. These guys have the athleticism to do it. I just think it's going to take time. I think, again, this wide receiver core is going to look totally different 4 weeks from now than they're going to look this month because it just takes time for them to grow. They have the dudes to do it. They'll get there. It's just a matter of whether they get there Iowa State this week or whether it's more like November. That could really alter their win total. But I think by the end of the season, they're going to get there.
What did you think of the way that Blake Shapen bounced back?
I thought he had a tremendous game. Blake, I think the main area he struggled against BYU was, I think he just had a couple of plays where he just really messed up. And, I'm sure he would tell you the same thing. But I think really the other part of it was because those wide receivers were struggling to beat press coverage and get to their spots. There were a lot of instances where when guys weren't in where he expected them to be, and to be clear, this is just kind of my speculation based off what I saw. I'm not 100% on this, but it seemed like once the rhythm of the play got thrown off, we saw him scramble outside the pocket a lot or just take a sack. And I think what we saw against Texas State was much more often, I think, of a big play he had to Richard Reese when he threw to Richard down the sideline. That was a play where Baylor was trying to take a shot downfield. It was one of those kind of big, true play action deep shots. But the protection wasn't great. And instead of Shapen trying to escape the pocket or just kind of falling down and letting the defensive line get him, he stepped up in the pocket and looked towards one of his shorter routes and just got the ball out and ended up being a big play. So I really liked what I saw from him. A couple of bad snaps, so that's going to happen for any college quarterback. I thought all in all, he was one of Baylor's best players in that game.
Do you think we've even seen what they will show or at least want to try and show against Iowa State?
No, not at all. To beat Iowa State, again, I don't know if I've said this on the show before, but Iowa State is a team to where if you can reliably execute 10 plays in a row, you're going to score. And so, but the thing is Iowa State, that's a really smart defensive game plan for them because most college offenses cannot execute 10 plays in a row without an incompletion or, a bad throw or a drop or a blown block from their offensive lineman, any kind of mistake. And so what I think you're going to see Baylor do against Iowa State that we haven't seen in any other game yet is kind of really show their fully developed, like early down, 1st and 10, straight up, just drop back pass, have Shapen drop back and hit somebody for a slant for 7 yards. That's something they really haven't shown yet this year. And I think a lot of it is because they're holding some things back for conference play. Again, this is a long season. And as I've said many times on here before, coaches are not building for September. They're building for October and November. And so I think you saw them hold some things back that we're really going to see fully fleshed out and used against Iowa State. Again, if they wanted to beat Texas State by 70, they could have, and it would have been by opening things up more in the pass game. But they're going to have to be reliable and solid in the pass game, especially on early downs to beat Iowa State.
Of the injuries right now, what is most concerning to you in terms of who might not be available? I guess there's Tay McWilliams, Cole Maxwell. It does seem like Ben Sims is on more of the shorter list. And who else am I missing here? Khalil Keith and Monterey. Yeah, like what do you kind of make of that injury situation at the moment?
Well, Khalil's been a massive loss all season. He was one of Baylor's probably 5 or 6 best players on that team last year and would have been one of their 5 or 6 best players this year. So that's been a tough one all year. Randa said it's just going to be a while till he's back. So it's not really worth thinking about him at this point. But, man, it'd be nice to have him on this offensive line right now. I do think while Baylor is really, really deep on the defensive line, Cole Maxwell has been tremendous this year. He's one of Baylor's starting defensive ends. And really what Baylor's been able to do to everyone they've been playing for the past 6, 7, 8 games is just fully kind of dominate and stop their run game and force them to be one-dimensional in the pass game. And Cole is probably their best run defender. So that'll be something to watch against Iowa State as far as, with TJ Franklin as Cole's replacement, but he's probably not as good in, as a run stopper. TJ's a great player. I thought he was probably Baylor's best player overall in that entire game against Texas State. But going up to Ames, I think you want to be able to make this Iowa State offense one-dimensional, and Cole would have been a big part of that. So him not being there hurt. And just real quickly with Monterey, I thought Monterey was going to be Baylor's best offensive weapon this fall. So anytime you don't have your best offensive weapon, that hurts. He brings a big playability that I'm not sure if anybody else on this offense has right now. Really want to have him back, and so I'm very happy that it sounds like Aranda said he's in that group of if things go right this week, he's going to play, as opposed to on the outside looking in.
How much would it have helped to hit the Presley? Was it Presley on the deep post? It was just got tripped up. I mean, just to do it, to just feel it, see it, make it, and do it.
That's a great point, Smokey. I said when I rewatched that play, and what I thought of was I remember early on with Gary and Taekwon last year that it just felt like for about the first 3 or 4 games that they just weren't quite on the same page on those post routes. It's not the receiver doesn't run to the same spot of the field every time. What the quarterback has to kind of do is read the leverage of where that corner is on the hip of the wide receiver, and then he throws the ball to where it's most advantageous for the receiver to get it. And so I think what you're seeing here is this kind of this clear picture of this is what it looks like when a receiver and a quarterback are learning how each other play. Because there's only so many times you can rep that, and especially only in a live game situation. And so that ball I thought was really, really good from Shapen, but maybe just a little bit off compared to where Hal was expecting it, because I think you saw him kind of have to cut up field as opposed to continuing to run across field. So whether that's on Hal not doing things right or whether Shapen, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that they need to get on the same page, because that outlet over the top is what is going to take Baylor to the next level offensively. Because once you consistently hit that ball, that's what keeps that safety back and double covering that receiver as opposed to just being able to leave a corner single up on Hal. So I think that's a great point, Smokey, because that is a key play for the rest of Baylor's season. If they continue to misfire on those deep post routes, I think you're going to see teams be able to load up more against the run. But if they can start hitting those, that's what really opens up this offense.
I have seen what appear to be wide receivers, I don't know if they're running free, but we're about to see one of the best in the country in Xavier Hutchinson, who's a big target, dynamic player. What will Baylor do to try to help maybe make sure he doesn't just have one of those massive games?
Oh, man, that's a great question. I think he's going to have a big game. He's one of those guys who's so good that it's kind of more of a matter of containing him as opposed to fully stopping him. I hope I have to eat my words and he has like 3 catches for 13 yards or something after Saturday. That'd be great. But he's just a flat out dude. He's going to have 7, 8, 9, 10 catches in this game. It's just a matter of whether he's able to dominate the critical moments. What you have seen Iowa State do with Xavier Hutchinson this year, and again, I think he's pretty clearly the best wide receiver in the Big 12 right now. If it's 3rd and 7, he's just one of those dudes right now that they're throwing it to him, and it just doesn't matter. He's dominating whoever is across from him. So again, I think it's more about containing him. And what that looks like really, I think, for a defensive coordinator is you want to make it to where when at least half the time the quarterback is looking for him, the read is just not quite clear. And so he gets a little bit hesitant because, again, like in big situations there's going to be a handful of plays this game where the guy just makes an unbelievable catch and you have to tip your cap to him. But you just don't want to make anything easy for him. Make him earn it. And he'll definitely earn some of it. But I think they're going to have their eyes on him. They're going to do some bracket coverage and just make him earn it because you can't let him just kind of go 1v1 and dominate versus defensive backs all day.
Iowa State likes to run the ball, but they're throwing the ball more. Baylor's front obviously has been killing people in the running game, although Brigham Young was now it really was Jaron Hall with what he did with his legs. So how does Iowa State attack Baylor's defense?
Oh, man, I think that is probably the question of the week. Their new quarterback, I kind of went out on a limb this offseason saying I thought that Hunter Deckers would be better than Brock Purdy. I think they kind of got stunted by Purdy's lack of growth. He's one of those quarterbacks who seems basically the exact same as a freshman as he was as a senior. Deckers just looks like he has it all. Big arm. He's got a beautiful lefty stroke. I just want to tell any Baylor fans listening, any college football fans listening, do not underestimate Iowa State. They are every bit one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the Big 12 right now. And it's because of what they're doing offensively. Their quarterback Deckers is really able to spread the ball around. He makes some throws that literally just make your jaw drop, very advanced for a college quarterback and especially for a young kid. So I think I very much expect, Smokey, and you alluded to it, they're going to run the ball a little bit, just to keep Baylor honest. But this is a game to where if they're getting up into the 20s and potentially into the 30s, it's because they're playing spread ball and just letting Deckers and their wide receivers kind of eat out in space. So I think Baylor's answer for how they play when Iowa State plays that spread style is really the key to the game. Because if it looks anything like the first half against Texas State this past week, where they were just kind of going up and down the field with short passes, Baylor's not going to live long playing that way. So my guess is they have something up their sleeve, something they didn't want to show against Iowa State this past week, against Texas State, because they knew they were going to use it against Xavier Hutchinson and Iowa State. So that is definitely the storyline to watch for this upcoming game.
Thank you, Travis. Great stuff. Appreciate it. Travis Roeder, Sikkim365.com football analyst with us Mondays, a little after 5, and also on game days, our pregame, with his keys to the game that he brings to the table. Travis Roeder, Sikkim365.com. We will hear from Michelle Gardner from the Arizona Republic in a moment. Arizona State made their decision to let Herm Edwards go. That was a time bomb. There was the COVID year, the NCAA investigation, some men on staff that were released as well, and the allegations. But then the loss to Eastern Michigan, and they did not take long, as Herm Edwards is now out as the head football coach at Arizona State. Michelle Gardner now joins us, covers ASU, and has been with us on a couple of occasions before. Michelle, I guess it was just a matter of time. Can we go over, first of all, there's a video of Herm Edwards coming off the field with both the president and also Ray Anderson there. They didn't fire him at that moment, did they?
No. That was kind of, I think we need to meet type of quick conversation. So no, it actually happened, obviously Sunday. That was kind of the time frame.
Why did they wait till the season to do this when, the last time we had you on the show, we kind of said this is probably coming?
Well, all indications are, and what we're kind of hearing, and it looks like, and we asked Ray Anderson yesterday about that, why not after last season when they underachieved last season? And this whole thing was kind of still looming. And he said, well, 8-5 is not terrible. We were, we went to a bowl game. We were hoping some things would change, things like the undisciplined play most notably. And then when it became apparent that things weren't going to change, then we felt we needed to move into a new direction. Now, I'm reading into that too, that the NCAA investigation wasn't necessarily a factor in Herm being fired, because if that really was, then they would have got rid of him when they got rid of all the other coaches. Mm-hmm. So it seems that to most of us that cover the team, this is more about the way they've played and the fact that the undisciplined nature of the play, it just didn't, especially losing to Eastern Michigan, my God. And when we were in the elevator going down to the post-game press conference, we, the media horde, are saying, this is a firing type of game. This is a Scott Frost loses to a bad team all over again. And that we weren't surprised. We thought maybe they might wait till the bye week, but their bye week comes after a gauntlet of teams. They now have Utah, USC, and Washington back to back to back before that bye week. So it could be a bloodbath before then.
Yeah, the Pac-12 looking good is terrible news for Arizona State right now, with all these teams that are looking pretty nice after 3 weeks. How would you describe, or how do you think the Herm Edwards era at Arizona State will be remembered?
I think unfortunately it's going to be all about what's happened in the last year and a half. And when Herm got hired, obviously it was a move that was scrutinized by many. He had some nice wins right out of the box. He started recruiting California, and his coaches started recruiting California and did very well in his second years there. And they kind of were making steady progress, and it looked like everything was headed in the right direction. And then I hate to blame COVID, but then COVID hit. And obviously you don't have all those violations if you don't have COVID. And, that year they played 4 games, and, you had a month between the first and the second game. And, and then last year they underachieved with 20 returning starters. So it just kind of seems like things have steamrolled over them in the last year and a half.
Is Ray Anderson's job in trouble?
Most of us seem to think so, just because there have been some things not even related to the football program that would lead everybody to believe that his job could be on the line. And obviously, maybe that's the bad thing about hiring your good friend. If it doesn't work out and it blows up in your face like this has, it's not a good look. But there are some other things, and that's probably another discussion for another day, as far as things in the Ray Anderson tenure that would lead everybody to believe that his job is in jeopardy. I think there's a whole lot hinging on what hire they now make.
Michelle, is one of those things hinging the future of conference expansion and the future of the Pac-12, and the fact that now that the LA schools are gone, maybe the school that's in the Phoenix Metroplex needs to make more of a stamp than they are?
I don't think necessarily. I think they need to bring in somebody that can kind of stabilize the program. And today we had a press conference with Sean Iguana, who is the running backs coach, who will be the interim coach. And I'll tell you what, he struck all the right chords. I mean, he hit all the high notes, said everything that probably the fan base wanted to hear, but it also came off as very sincere. And he teared up a couple times talking about how much this opportunity meant to him. And he definitely, sometimes you can get a measure for if a guy's just saying what the public wants to hear and the fan base wants to hear, but there was definitely an air of sincerity about him that resonated with all of us that was in attendance.
Michelle, outside of the NCAA aspect of this, what do you think are the biggest questions a potential candidate will have or should have about where Arizona State sits currently?
Well, I think it's tough sledding to get a good pool of applicants when you've got a possible NCAA, the investigation / infractions / maybe probation coming down the pike. I don't know what kind of pool of applicants you're going to hire, in wake of that. Now, Anderson said yesterday that he definitely thinks there needs to be a younger coach, possibly, that's more in tune with the current landscape of college sports, as in the transfer portal, NIL. And maybe those things Herm kind of was out of touch with and just not very familiar with. maybe didn't want to deal with, knowing that it's not like he was going to be the coach for the long haul. His contract ran through 24, but we all know that he wasn't going to be a long-term coach for this program. So maybe he didn't divest himself and really, embrace those things like he should have. So Anderson was saying maybe it's a new coach that's in tune with those things that's the best fit for this program.
Aguano is the one now who becomes the interim coach. He's young. He's a former high school coach. I think he's young. And obviously was hired because he could help some recruiting as well. Can you give us any background on him, or is this just temporary?
You know what? Anderson said that he will be given every opportunity to win this job. And when you look at what happened at Washington State last year, that's exactly what happened. Jake Dickert won that job with what he did in the last games. So Anderson said that Sean will be given that opportunity. When he talked today, he talked about how grateful he was for Herm giving him a chance and bringing him in, and how this was bittersweet for him because it's at the expense of his friend that he's getting this opportunity. But, again, depending on what kind of pool of applicants you get, maybe he's the perfect guy, assuming that they can kind of restore order and finish in some kind of respectable manner. And let's say they can clean up the discipline play and the team plays with passion. The team plays with some pride. I think those things are going to go a long way.
Herm Edwards is an incredibly positive human being, and we saw him as a head coach in the NFL, the play he made as a player, and we had him on. We've had him on the show. He seems to be very inspirational. Did his personality change at all under the fire the last year and a half?
Not particularly. It's hard to say where kind of the whole thing kind of changed. Like I said, I think when things started steamrolling and getting bad, then he just wasn't able to resolve it. I think Herm was, first of all, he is a great person. Like for us, the media, he's always great to deal with. He's returned my calls in a prompt manner, and the man is in demand. I have nothing but good things to say from him from a personal standpoint. I think he's a good guy, and I think he really deeply cares about his players. There are just some little things that kind of made it hard for, I think, the school to keep him in place. Now, I'll give you one good example. It just seemed like when it came to accountability, he didn't necessarily seem to be accountable himself. Now, maybe this is a pro thing, and when you've got pro players, and let's say you go out and you have all these penalties and undisciplined play, maybe it is more on the players because, you're paid professionals. You've been doing this your whole life, NFL players, 15 years or whatever. But it's different when you're talking about kids. So when we ask them about the undisciplined play and the penalties, and we get remarks like, well, the coaches can only coach. It's the players out there that are playing. Yeah, there just didn't seem to be any accountability for his part in when things were going wrong, type of thing. That's just kind of one perspective. And again, maybe it's the difference between coaching in college and coaching at the professional level. And then he just seemed to be out of touch with some things. For example, when it came to talking about injuries, now the first game of the year, they lost an offensive lineman, Joey Ramos, to a broken ankle. He got hurt in the first game, and after the game, Herm says, well, Joey's going to be fine, lineman, and, he'll, so, and then 2 days later, he's telling us he's out for the season and he is having surgery that week. So I don't think it was necessarily a thing like he was trying to deceive us. I just think he was out of touch, maybe talking before he had all the facts, that type of thing. And then you go back, and I don't know how many of your listeners actually kind of know what happened. So at the end of the first half of the game on Saturday, ASU gets the ball back. They're down 10 and a minute and a half or so left. And they end up with a 3rd and 6, and they complete about a 5-yard pass, and it's 4th and 1. And there's 12, 13 seconds left, and Herm calls timeout. And we're looking at each other like, what the heck is that all about? Like, why are they calling timeout to send the punter on the field? They could have just let the clock run out and go into the locker room and regroup. And he said, well, I thought we had the timeout. I thought we had the first down, so we were going to get in a couple more plays. We were hurrying to get in a couple more plays, and one of the reporters, well, were you really hurrying? Because you got to delay a game to start the drive. Like, things like that. It's just, and again, it's hard because I like Herm personally. He's great for us, the media, to deal with. But there just seemed to be some disconnects when it came to situations like this.
Good stuff, Michelle. Glad we had you on. Thank you so much. Always great insight. Michelle Gardner, Arizona Republic, covering ASU and also the Herm Edwards gone and the Sun Devils as they move on. This is Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports, and David Hellman on the Cowboys win against Cincinnati is next. 365 Sports.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Tom Albers, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If your financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Tom Albers, 4301 Lakeshore Drive, 254-776-7605. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Baylor Scott & White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott & White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance
Beyonce and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozers and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiancé deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozers. Boozers Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
First and goal. He's found 5 different targets. He's going to hand it off. It's Pollard, and he's across for the Dallas touchdown.
It's time for our weekly segment with David Hellman of FoxSports.com.
Here we go, this 5 o'clock hour, rolling through, and David Hellman joins us. Cowboys beat the Bengals. A tremendous game in which they had, it seemed like, kind of in control, and then all of a sudden, here comes Cincinnati. David, your thoughts about this Cooper Rush? He's 2-0 as a starter. He made throws in the clutch. I'm not saying he's the answer, but just the fact this guy, when it's his time, he does something with it.
Yeah, I think Coop is one of the more chill people I've ever been around. Honestly, I think a meaner way to say that would be boring. He's one of the more boring players I've ever been around. I mean, that sounds mean, but that's all I could think about both times, really, after his win against Minnesota last year and then yesterday after they beat Cincinnati. You would think that he was making coffee. And I think that's kind of a testament to his success is he really doesn't seem to ever get too high or too low for the moment. And I think that's what the Cowboys needed. Yeah, I mean, like I said, maybe that sounds a little bit mean, but I mean it as the highest compliment. Like he's completely unfazed by any of this stuff. And he's gone out and played that way twice now, which is, I mean, not the most amazing football game you've ever seen, but that's all you can ask for from a backup is to not flinch when you're in a moment like that.
David, obviously we don't know what's coming ahead for the Cowboys, but I would say week 1 to week 2, as far as execution goes and not looking like they totally didn't know what was going on, especially on offense, this was a huge jump, especially Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore really managed this week pretty well.
Yeah, and look, I think most people would agree that they expected the Cowboys to lose the opener. I mean, that's a tough team to beat. Tom Brady's never lost to the Cowboys, yada, yada, yada. Like, it wasn't that they lost the game that I think had so many people down on them. They, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, just didn't look like they knew what they were doing. That was what was so, not just refreshing, but I'll even say surprising about yesterday is like they got contributions from all of those guys that couldn't do anything right last. You saw there weren't issues with the pre-snap like we saw with Terrence Steele. Noah Brown had the best day of his career when just a week ago he couldn't catch anything. CeeDee Lamb, again, not like the gaudiest day of his career either, but looked like a guy that you can count on to make clutch plays instead of a guy that comes away with 2 catches on 11 targets. Cooper only got sacked 1 time. I thought Tyler Smith played phenomenally for a guy making his second start at left tackle. So, yeah, I mean, the defense was great against Tampa. They obviously, I think they were the stars of the show yesterday, really. I mean, I don't think you win that game without the pass rush playing that way. But they didn't look like an NFL offense with Dak Prescott in week 1. And that is what I think terrified so many people about week 2. So it's kind of bogus that it got to that point, that they looked that bad in an NFL game, but credit to them for cleaning literally everything up in 1 week without Dak.
So what are your thoughts as now it appears as Dak could be back sooner than perhaps expected?
I mean, first of all, I'll believe that when I see it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's classic Cowboys to pump up the optimism. And like, that's not a knock on Dak. He's as tough as anybody, as I know, but it's an injury to his throwing hand. I mean, that's going to be problematic. You can't fake that. Like, you can't limp your way through a game the way that you can when you strain your calf. Like, you've got to be able to grip and rip the ball and do it, confidently and competently. So we'll see. And that's my attitude toward this whole team is we'll see. They came together. They got a really nice team win. But I also think it goes to show, like, when you don't have a true difference maker like a Dak Prescott, I I think the margin for error is razor thin. I mean, they played the game of their lives and still won it at the gun. So I think that's the world you're going to be living in for the next little bit. I think everybody's going to have to continue pulling their weight that way. Because, like I said, I mean, you're not digging your way. Joe Burrow. I know they lost the game, but Joe Burrow dug the Bengals out of a 17-3 hole 2 weeks in a row. No disrespect to Cooper Rush, I don't think he's digging his way out of a 17-3 hole. So I'm very impressed with what they did. It doesn't super change my outlook for where they are or what they are. But hey, I mean, they've historically played really well against the division the last decade or so. So they've got 2 division games coming up. And, man, I mean, if they can get to even 2-2, let alone 3-1, and then you're talking about Dak maybe coming back. Yeah, I mean, that could be a different conversation. But we got to get there first.
Cooper will never have to bring him from behind because they'll never trail with him as starting quarterback. I said it.
Wow.
No.
Wow. Hey, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I mean, I know the Giants are 2-0, but I certainly think that is, that's an even matchup. Maybe you give a slight edge to the Giants because they do have their starter and they are playing at home. But like, if they can beat the Bengals, it shouldn't be a shock if they win either of these next 2 games. But I don't think it's going to be easy. I mean, I know Washington got their butts kicked yesterday, but Carson Wentz is putting up a lot of big plays up there right now. I mean, that's an explosive group. So it's going to be fun. At the end, honestly, that's all I can ask for is a week ago at this time, I was like, man, this season looks like it's going to be a brutal slog and there's just going to be no fun whatsoever. So at least now we can talk about these games and hope that they'll actually be fun.
The running game, David, was pretty good on Sunday. Zeke Elliott back looking pretty much like he did before he was running on a bum wheel, and Tony Pollard making plays again. I was not as surprised about that as I was about just like Matt Farniok and guys like that playing pretty well. I know he had DJ Reader and he had his hands full the whole game, but the young guys, especially Biadasz and Farniok, didn't get mashed around.
Yeah, and I mean, throw Tyler in there too for a guy, and that's not the best front in the league, but the Bengals' strengths is their ends, Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard, and they gave him some fits too. I mean, they had a couple nice TFLs in that game, but yeah, overall, I mean, to rush for 100 yards and be north of 4 yards a carry when your backup quarterback is in and everybody knows that you would probably rather not wing it around. I think that's very impressive. Shoot. So Tyler Farniok and Tyler Biadasz, I mean, that's 3 young players, 2 of whom you were hoping would not have to be doing what they're doing. And they held up really well. For that matter, I mean, all things considered, I don't think they were terrible against the Bucs either. So pleasantly surprised.
So, David, there's a moment where Trayvon Diggs looked banged up, and I just think everybody's probably holding their breath like, oh, my gosh, like how much worse can this get? Dalton Schultz gets banged up. Diggs obviously kept on playing, but with Schultz, it appears that they got some good news on the injury front. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a PCL injury, and it's so from what I heard last night that it sounded kind of bad, and then I think, and that's why teams always say, like, all right, we're going to reevaluate in the morning, let the swelling go down, take a cleaner look at it. And so it sounds like it's better than they might have originally anticipated. But what I don't know yet is what that means. I mean, better than anticipated could mean we thought we lost him for the season and instead we only lost him for a month or so, or, something like that. So I don't know the severity. I think I would be pretty impressed with Dalton if he's able to play on Monday. But we'll have to get later into the week and get a firmer handle on how much time they think he's going to miss.
Peyton Hendershot time. Jake Ferguson. Yeah. Let's do it.
Let me tell
Sean McCune too.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what I liked about yesterday's game. One, okay, whether they win or not does not affect me one way or the other. But I saw a team that's not a bunch of glitz and glamour. And sometimes, teams can do that. The Cowboys have had a lot of weapons over the years. I saw a team that's going to scratch and claw. And I love it. The defense played with their hair on fire. They got after Burrow, which everybody's been able to do. I just saw a team that was kind of like one it would be easy to like. Does that make any sense at all, David?
It absolutely makes sense. And it was the theme of my story last night was, I mean, I know it's a cliche. Everybody says you need all three phases to win a football game. But I mean, literally every aspect of that team did something in that game. Obviously, I mean, what Micah and the pass rush were able to do speaks for itself. But yeah, even Trayvon, I mean, we know he gets picks and we know he's a good cornerback, but the knock on him is that he's not a wonderful tackler. He's not a guy that wants to go stick his nose in there and really, get into business. And then he turned that game on its head. He made back-to-back stops. I mean, that tackle he made on third down, I'll be honest, I didn't know Trayvon Diggs was capable of laying a guy out like that. A really tough play that obviously forced the Bengals to punt far earlier in the drive than they wanted to and set the Cowboys up to win. And it just goes on and on and on. You're like, I mean, it's so cool to see a moment like that for a guy like Noah Brown, a guy who's been scrapping for 6 years in this league to finally kind of have a breakout moment. We already mentioned the offensive line. Brett Maher was a guy that every single person affiliated with the Cowboys was, when he signed in August, everybody said, oh my God, here we go again. And there'll definitely be ups and downs, but he hit 2 huge kicks and won them the game. So like you go down the line, it was a very, it was a full team effort and it was also a very gritty effort. And like I said, I think they're going to need to do that every single time that Dak's not in the lineup. I mean, preferably every time after he's in the lineup too. But I mean, I think there's a distinct talent disadvantage when you don't have your starting quarterback, and it takes an effort like that to overcome it.
David, have you become an LA person yet?
I don't think so. I barely even feel like I live here, to be honest with you. Like it's a very weird existence right now. And I mean, that's to be expected when you move anywhere, but like I'm still waiting on a lot of my stuff to get sent out here. I don't have a car yet. I'm basically living in a hotel room. I'm either at work watching football or sleeping. Like those are the three things that I do, which is great. That's really the only things I want to do anyway. So it's fine. But, yeah, like people are like, oh, what's your favorite thing about LA? Have you been to the beach? And I'm like, no, dude, I'm either on my couch watching football or at work. So hopefully when I get a little bit more situated, I'll have a better answer.
We'll always be able to say we knew him when. He's now up the ladder. No, really proud of you, man. And I love the personality you have and the sense of humor, but the truth serum. Thanks, David. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
David Hellman, FoxSports.com on the Cowboys, the win against Cincinnati, which I text Paul when it was 17-3. Maybe the Bengals were going to – and then they tie it, and they have to make two-point conversion. If they lose that game, the odds of making the playoffs at 0-2 are like basically none. And the Cowboys won a Super Bowl in 93, when they started 0-2. Emmett was having the holdout year. But, I mean, overall, all these years, it's like 2 or 3% have made the playoffs after starting 0-2.
Backup running back, was it Williams or Lassick?
Might have been Derek Lassick. Yeah. I don't know the timeline. Both of them from Alabama, weren't they? Sherman and
I just remember thinking, like, I really hate this Derek Lassick guy, and I wish that he was Emmitt Smith.
Yeah, and the problem was they started out on the road at D.C., at all RFK and all of that in early September, their opening game that year. Alabama today received, or may have been, was it earlier today? Yeah, Alabama received the commitment from Jordan Renaud. He is Jordan Renaud. He's a defensive lineman that plays at Legacy High School, used to be Tyler Lee. It's the same school where Jamarian Miller, the running back, who is at Alabama, who committed initially, I think he was going to go to Texas, signed with Alabama, so they did receive, he's a top 300 guy, in fact, ranked number 45 in the ESPN top 300. That's another player. Alabama comes in the state. Oklahoma and Alabama were according to this report on ESPN, were the two that he was down to. So there's that note with that. When we come back, Paul Catalina's top 5.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. And BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, everyone. This is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like mortgage lending, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, cause weight gain, and wreak havoc on your sexual desire and performance. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results, so if you're tired of being tired, I challenge you to man up and Google search Low T Waco or go online pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $150 a month, includes lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, follow-up visits compared to $395 a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T as board-certified physician consultations will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone available. Contact Petty Clinic Low T today. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, Petty Clinic Low T, helping men become the high-performance men they deserve to be. PettyClinicLowT.com or Google search Low T Waco.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
Top 5 Coaches Heat Meter Volume 2. We've got 2 big-time coaches that have now been moved on to the next phase of their career in Scott Frost and Herm Edwards. And here's the next. And I grade these based on different levels of things. So it's all right. Number 5, mandatory fire safety seminar is Neil Brown.
If he can get a win against Virginia Tech, he'll move down into the warm room category. And if he can win throughout the Big 12, but loses to Virginia Tech with some of the games that have coming up in conference, I would say that his situation, guys, only gets hotter.
Do you know what his buyout is, Paul?
No, I don't. It's pretty big.
Yeah, it's a pretty big buyout. I think that's the big hurdle if you're West Virginia that you have to worry about if you're planning to try and fire him. I think it's something like $11 million or something, and maybe that's not a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, but I do think he has a pretty significant buyout. Now, I'm not sure if it's a Scott Frost thing where, like, if you wait until this time, then it drops to this or whatever. And as we've seen with teams that, Nebraska went and paid a bunch of money to fire Scott Frost to get their heads kicked in by Oklahoma. So, teams will get rid of you when they're ready to. But, I think that West Virginia, a lot will just depend on how they play through Big 12 play. And Virginia Tech's obviously a fun non-con to kind of see more about them before Big 12 play gets in full swing. But already lost to Kansas. At least that doesn't look as bad as it did, when it happened at the time. That is a saving grace for him. But, yeah, I definitely think it's warm right now in Morgantown.
Yeah. Number 4, the room is filling with smoke. Jeff Collins at Georgia Tech. And it's so nondescript what they do. Like, you watch them play, and you're like, well, they were there.
Who was their first game?
Clemson.
Yeah, I watched that game. It seemed like there's a lot of, erratic timeouts and just the way they go about their business.
Yeah, it's just not working there. And Georgia Tech, admittedly, I think we talked about this last time we talked about Jeff Collins, it is not just they have the same kind of thing, like, to a certain degree that Stanford or Duke or Notre Dame would as far as academic standards that they've got to hit. But that doesn't mean, it's not like there's just a bunch of, guys with bad grades playing football everywhere else, but they're not hitting where their recruiting needs to be, and that's clear with the way that this team is.
Yeah, I think I might have even lowballed Neil Brown's buyout by like $5 or $6 million. It's somewhere between like a 12 and 20 million, so it's significant. Yeah. Jeff Collins, there's who cares about Georgia Tech right now? Honestly, I mean, what are they doing that anybody cares about? Nothing. Yeah. I mean, there's no mojo, there's no juice, there's no whatever term you want to use. It's just a flailing ship, and some people think that Dion in Atlanta would be a huge, boost for that program. He could go wild there as far as, the recruiting and the base. And, just Dion and ATL, I think, running a college program, there's a lot to see how that could, be pretty exciting. I don't know if Georgia Tech's all in on that. That's obviously fantasy booking on Twitter and whatnot. But I think that they, with the ATL ties, as much as the school part of that makes them unique in that they're not just some diploma mill. There are some standards there. It is not just just taking a job in ATL. There are some caveats there, but I think there's definitely some room to be successful at Georgia Tech. It's just definitely not going to be Jeff Collins. That's very clear at this point.
Yeah. Number 3, crawling for the exit. Scott Satterfield at Louisville lost to the backup quarterback at Florida State the other night in a game on national television that Louisville was up multiple times in the second half and couldn't hold on. Lost to Syracuse earlier this year, although that team's undefeated right now. So
another basketball school unbeaten.
But this is a basketball school that's not unbeaten in Louisville right now. And the athletic director who hired him is out the door. This is a matter of time. And the other night, when you knock out there wasn't just Jordan Travis who was out of that game. Jared Verse and Fabian Lovett, their best 2 defensive linemen, one didn't make the trip, and then Jared Verse got hurt during the game. That's not good when you can't beat a team that is down that much, that is not really that deep. He it blew the game to him last year, and that was a bad team that hadn't won any games yet. So Louisville is going to be looking for a new coach soon.
Yeah, it seems like it. There's not a lot of, again, mojo there right now, or a lot of belief in that program. And you thought after getting a big win, followed up, and everybody think would, maybe get on a better course, but that didn't last very long at all. Yeah. So,
Number 2, stop, drop, and roll. This means you're actually on fire. Brian Harsin got absolutely pummeled at home by Penn State. That one was just bad. Auburn's boosters are, all over the place to begin with, and that game is not going to be good. I mean, that's not going to be good for his resume or anybody on that staff's resume. That is just bad. And I think they've probably felt already that he's not a fit. He's probably a fit at a ton of other places in this country, but not Auburn.
Yeah, you guys have said, I thought it was a little bit early, but they got smoked at home. They did. Penn State beat them up. And Auburn, like Arizona State, like Nebraska, they're looking for a reason. They don't even have to have a reason, but this one's on life support.
I mean, it's heading that direction, if not already there for some people. I mean, again, it's not like they're pulling the plug tomorrow. There's, let's let it play out a little bit more. But yeah, it's all the signs are there that this is inevitably going to end at some point sooner rather than later, and that Auburn's going to go a different direction. Some of the support he had, obviously gone now, and they made the change at AD, and then turn that around and a few weeks later, a couple weeks later, whatever. Well, when did they do that, the AD move? Was that like 3-4 weeks ago? Yeah. I mean, and here we are a month later, and he's getting his head kicked in at home by, Penn State. TJ Finley's not going to win them a bunch of games. They're just, that's not very good at Auburn right now, and they haven't even started SEC play yet. So you can only imagine how that might go. Maybe he saves some face in that respect, but it's hard to see how.
Yeah. And number one, the humanity. Carl Durrell at Colorado, who after the game said, I like our enthusiasm, but not our production, which to me means I've got a whole lot of kids who like playing football. We just suck at it. And
then the famous AD support thing.
Oh, yeah, that happened today.
The vote of confidence?
That was last night, the vote of confidence.
Yeah, the vote of confidence. That's just bad for Carl Durrell at Colorado, and they and Georgia Tech, to me, the other ones, like Louisville at least has some pizzazz. West Virginia has some pizzazz. But Colorado and Georgia Tech just have become so nondescript in the way that you think about them in the college football world that, I mean, that's just, how do you recruit to bland? And that's what's going on there right now.
They're awful. They're one of the worst programs in the entire country. This is inevitable. I don't know what his buyout is. I think it actually is a little bit hefty. That's probably what we need to kind of keep in mind with a lot of these. Not that they're barriers completely, because as we've seen again, there's multiple coaching jobs that have opened in the first 3 weeks of the season. But this is a foregone conclusion. It's just a matter of when, not if. And I don't see how in the world he could possibly turn this ship around. Not necessarily all his fault, I guess, but it's just in a really bad spot. They're awful. They're absolutely awful.
Colorado fires him on December. If they fire him on December 31st, it will owe him $7.8 million. That's determined by a clause in his contract that calls for a buyout of $11.4 million minus his earned salary base. So that's not in this day and age when these guys are making so much money, the schools, the programs. But that's still a chunk.
That's doable, money though. I thought for some reason it might be higher than that, like more in the double digits. But if they wait, I mean, that's somebody will write that check, I'm sure. $7 million can prevent you from completely tanking this thing even further, which I don't know how much further it could actually go down. I mean, that's the kind of trajectory Colorado's on at the moment. They're really bad.
They are just like they're almost like you don't even remember, and it's sad that they play football.
It's become bland.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. Thank you very much, Paul. In the top five, Jack McKenzie, Emery Winter, also Jacob Wilson. Don't forget tonight, 10:30, Sports Tonight on the CW channel with much of what we've had and what you can watch again if you missed part of the show. For Paul Catalina, for Craig Smoak, thanks to everybody a part of the text line, the chat room, and our great sponsors. David Smoak, Sick of 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Good night.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.